Hello everybody and welcome to the overnight hours. This is John Hindhaugh and the rest of the IMSA Radio, IMSA TV crew from the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Delighted to be linking up with you in the United States. Many of you may have been listening to us already on IMSARadio.com. Jeremy Shaw is with me in the Global Broadcast Centre and Nick Damon is our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter. We've got 3 hours of time with you whilst our colleagues from NBC take some well-earned rest. And the story of the 59th running of the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona continues as we're, 40 minutes away from half distance still. And it's a story so far, Jeremy, that at the front of the field has absolutely ebbed and flowed between the top 4, 5, possibly still even 6, with the Mazda 3 laps down now. But in this form of racing, with the potential for laps back under yellows, those top 6 prototypes are still very much in with a chance of their drivers taking home a lovely Rolex Daytona Cosmograph.
I'd say the race is wide open, as you say. We're not even to the halfway point in this race. It's been a tremendously enjoyable race so far from my perspective. There were some caution periods earlier on which kind of broke the flow a little bit, but since then we've had some long green flag periods. One was almost 4 hours, another one was about 3.5 hours as well. So there have been some caution periods, but not that many, and we've had some tremendous battling going on. Right now we've got a fantastic battle for the lead because Philippe Albuquerque is coming under intense pressure from Simon Pagenaud in that Ally car number 48, the Acura then versus the Cadillac.
And this is where we see the respective performance of those 2 chassis and the 2 different engines. And they are very close together now as it's all getting tight at the sharp end of the field. Albuquerque and Pagenaud, the 10 and the 48, that's the black and blue car. Coming in the tri-oval now, headlights still shining, well lit of course, but still a different racetrack than it will be sometime after 7:15 this morning. Try round the outside. Pagenaud, very racy indeed at turn 1, but had the door gently closed. I don't think it was exactly slammed in his face there, but it was pushed closed rather quickly by the leader, as is his right. He was on the racing line, Philippe Albuquerque. In terms of where they are in their runs, they've both been into the pits relatively recently. Albuquerque is about halfway through his stint. 22 laps is what we're getting out of the DPIs, or thereabouts. A little bit more if there's some full course caution, full course yellow. Pagenaud's 2 laps worse off. 3rd place Kevin Magnussen is again on 10 laps. And in the Whelen Engineering Cadillac, Chase Elliott also 10 laps out of the pit. So nothing really, Jeremy, to choose between the strategy of those cars. So it will be down to traffic and quite clearly the pace of the drivers. The only thing that might be different is who's got better tyres. But as they've all been in for roughly the same amount of time, Albuquerque and Pagenaud both onto their 3rd stints in the car. So I would suggest, Mr. Shaw, that their Michelin tyres will be of the same kind of vintage. And again, Pagenaud tries around the outside at turn 1 with a little bit of cover in front of them as they have traffic, which they deal with rather nicely. So really now this is down to the nut behind the wheel and the battle for the lead, with still 12.5 hours to go.
Indeed, working their way through the traffic here. There's slower cars just about everywhere they look, but the last 3 laps for these leaders have all been within 0.2 of a second for each of them. So there's absolutely nothing to choose between them. You're right, they're running Yeah, they're about halfway through a stint now. They've done 11 laps since the last pit stop, and you're right, they're getting between 21 or 22 laps. It's kind of been interesting to see who gets 21, who gets 22. Occasionally there's a short stint in there, but generally speaking, they want to run as long as they possibly can. And if they could save a little bit of fuel, you're running behind somebody else here. Simon Packer in the slipstream of Phil Albuquerque, you can use a little bit less fuel in that second place car, and that's a good place to be. If you can save a little bit of fuel, maybe do a lap longer, or take on a little bit less fuel at your next stop, perhaps you can leapfrog the other guy in the pits. It's always going to be a lot easier to make a pass in the pit lane during the pit stops than it is out on the racetrack, as Simon Packer is describing out.
Yeah, they are very closely matched. These DPIs based on the current LMP2 chassis, just 4 chassis manufacturers mandated by the ACO and then taken on by IMSA a few years ago now. There is a new LMP2 chassis coming out this year from the same 4 manufacturers, and that will be the basis of DPI 2.0, the successor to this highly successful formula that IMSA brought in a few years ago. Some detailed changes, a mild hybrid system as well, but really not playing with the formula too much, and why should they, with the manufacturers that they've got involved here in North America. And we'll see those here at Daytona in January 2023, and with Audi and Porsche already having committed to that DPI 2.0, LMDH as it's known for the ACO world, and both of them mentioning in their statements of intent, press releases, that they want to be here in the US and in IMSA. I've no doubt at all that one of the reasons we're seeing so many Works drivers, Chris Meese, for example, out on the track at the moment in 4th place in LMP2 for Dragon Speed. Audi driver getting some LMP2 experience, hasn't driven the prototypes before, but that's what's coming down the pipe fairly shortly. And it's a very good morning up on top of the grandstand, the main grandstand at Daytona, to Ray Wenzel Jr., Rooftop Ray, with us as tradition dictates. Do you know, with everything else that's going on in the 12 months that we are looking behind us to now, there's something rather comforting about talking about racing cars on a date that we expected, at a venue that we expected, and having Rooftop Ray filming for us as the cars are on the infield. And we get the nod, which is what everybody wanted on Twitter. If you want to get in touch with us during this segment, by the way, it's hashtag R24 Radio, R24 for Rolex 24, R2424 Radio at IMSA Radio. That'll bring your tweet straight into the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. So, 42 running around at the moment. The 48, excuse me, running around the back of the circuit at the moment. Nick Damon has an update for us from the VP Racing Fuels pit and paddock report. GT Le Mans stops.
Yep, the last running, of course, of GT Le Mans at Daytona. They've gone through a complete rotation again. The cars are ranking between 25 and 33 laps, depending on where they are in their individual cycles, but it's been in and outs for Nick Tandy and Jordan Taylor in the 2 leading Corvettes, the 4 and the 3. Jesse Cron and Jules Gounon, the BMW Jesse Cron, he stayed on board again after 30 laps. Both the Corvettes did 33, by the way, on the fuel tank. Gounon did 30 as well for the Racing Competition Ferrari. He was in about 3 laps ago, slightly out of sync. It's the 25 BMW, and also, more importantly, Bruno Spengler handed his car over to Philip Eng, who always seems at least 1 letter short for his surname.
Good job we didn't have Exler and Enger as well in this race. That would have been too much for my poor little brain at this time of the morning. So 4.3, 24.62 in GT Le Mans. LMP3, 74 Riley from Muller Motorsports but there's laps between those, and another further lap back to Shockbridge Motorsport 33. That's that category being split up a wee bit. GTD we haven't spoken about for a while, and as we're catching up with a few of the leaders, let's see if we can spot the number 57, Amaro Engel for Winwood Racing. First go at the GT3 at the Daytona Rolex 24. And the car is on the infield at the moment, just going through the kink with Maro on board. He's got a decent lead, you know, 30 seconds, Jeremy, back to Daniel Serra for AF Corsa. 3 seconds there to the Sun Energy 1 car, which is gaining a bit, losing a bit. The Sun Energy 1 number 75 being run by Gradients Racing. Andres and the rest of the team taking that on. Andres has got a fantastic racing brain. It's top 3 then. Separated by a little over half a minute. Then it's Darren Turner, former Works Aston Martin. I suppose he still is a Works Aston Martin driver. There's just no Works GT Racing from Aston, so he's loaned out to Heart of Racing team in 4th position, another 22 seconds further back. A good run here for Winwood, Jeremy, leading in GT Daytona at their first time of asking in this class.
Yeah, very impressive run for Winwood. You're absolutely right, because all 4 drivers have done an exemplary job so far. They've been nice and consistent. I don't think they've been perhaps blindingly quick. That's not what it takes, though, is it, to win a 24-hour race? They've been consistent, and they haven't put a wheel wrong yet. And let's hope it stays that way. Russell Ward, Maro Engel, Indy Doncha, and Philip Ellis, the drivers in that number 57 car. And that car looks absolutely spotless. It really does. And he's doing a good job there to let some of the faster cars go past him on the infield section, and just doing exactly what he needs to do. We're still half an hour away from the half point in this race.
Coming through the tri-oval now to complete another lap. Philippe Albuquerque less than half a second ahead of the Allied Cadillac as traffic has played its part. Those 2 cars very close together, and Kevin Magnussen taking half a second or so out of them on the last couple of laps has got within 3 seconds now. So that's the 10 Acura and then the 2 Cadillacs, the 48 and the 01, with Kevin Magnussen making his debut, of course, in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. But as has been pointed out, it's not as if he's coming into this with no knowledge. Former Formula 1 pilot for Haas, and has been to many races in the past and watched even more because of the participation of his dad, Jan Magnussen. I suppose they could, in theory, at some part of the season, be battling against each other at some time. Kevin got a European and World Championship programme. Jan got a European programme up his sleeve for this year in prototype racing. Spent a long time with Corvette. And Kevin, I think the last time I saw Kevin at an IMSA race, Jeremy, was when he was I want to say it was Petit Le Mans at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta a couple or 3 years ago. It's probably longer than that now. But he was effectively on a free weekend from his quote-unquote day job. I think he was on babysitting duty for his dad.
Yeah, put him to work, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. This is getting spicy at the front now, Jeremy. Pagano's closed up now, and with a little bit of traffic as they go by the AF Corsa Ferrari in the infield section. Pagano's got to be close now if he wants to take advantage of any little slip or stumble by the leader when it comes up to lap cars.
No, it's been good. It's been a fine drive by all of these 3 at the moment. Chase Elliott, the NASCAR Cup Series champion, is running in 4th position now. Yes, he's losing a little bit of ground to the leaders, maybe 3/4 of a second a lap or so. But look, given his lack of experience in this sort of a car, he's doing a really good job. And I think what puts it into perspective how good a job he's doing is the fact that he is maintaining the same advantage over the car behind him, and that's driven by Olivier Pla, who is one of the best in the business in sports car racing. He's been driving this sort of cars for a long, long time, and knows exactly how to get the job done here at Daytona, does Olivier Pla, because he hasn't actually won this race before. He's finished second. He's won everything else pretty much in sports car racing. So for Chase Elliott to be doing as well as he is, holding in their fourth position and maintaining that gap to Pla, says a lot about this young man. He hadn't driven the car at all until he got to the raw test just a week ago. He was unable to make it to the test that the team had at Daytona in December, but boy, he's learned quickly. And this is, I gather he was a little bit disappointed after his first stint earlier in the evening.
Really?
But apparently, so we were told. I thought he was doing fine. I mean, he kept it clean and did what I thought was a really good job. And he's doing an even better job now in his second turn at the wheel of this car during this race. So
Jeremy, look at the car. Look at the car. I mean, it's dirty a little bit, but it looks like it's rolled off the truck, and that's exactly, in our Porsche Keys to Race that we were talking about in Michelin Countdown to Green some 11 and a bit hours ago, nearly 12 hours ago, we said about high noon being a key to the race, and what we meant by that is get to midday on Sunday. You've got 3 hours and 40 minutes left from there on. Assess what your situation is, where you are in the context of your class, and what resources you've got left to play with. He's doing absolutely the right job. He's not overtaxing himself or the car, and he's reeling the laps off. And when you look at his lap times, right, as you said, he's not going to be as fast as somebody who's got years in this type of racing, but look at how consistent he is. There's two things nowadays that endurance racing drivers talk about, and that is your stint average in terms of your laps, and that's everything other than your in and out lap, whether there's traffic or not, and your variance, so from your best lap to your worst lap in that stint. And the really good guys are within around about a percentage point, maybe 1.5% of their times over their stint of 35 to 40 minutes, 2, 3 and 4 times. Into the pit lane, the joy at the front of the field is broken up as we have a pit stop for the number 48 Cadillac. Nick Damon is watching this one.
Yeah, Ally Cadillac comes in after only a 20-lap run. It's an interesting variant in the long run length. You would normally run to a fuel, which appears to be 22 if you get a little bit of towing around and an ease with the traffic, or 21 in free air. Simon Pagenaud, just the 20. A nice new set of boots. They seem to do it every single stop. And away he goes in the Ally Cadillac, which I think is got a nice colour scheme. I quite like that one.
That's the silver and purple. Now watch the timing and scoring via IMSA.com if you haven't already got that up, because 2, possibly 3 laps, Jeremy, Simon, as good as he is, will not be able to put the times in for 2 reasons. One, the car is heavy because it's full of VP racing fuel, but 2, the tyres are cold. No tyre warmers of any description allowed in IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Racing, so the Michelins have to get energy put through them by the driver and the car to bring them up to temperature and, of course, to pressure.
Exactly right, and that's how it should be in my book. 21 laps into, I reckon that was. I think his last
he just went across the line.
48 was 367 to 388. That's about what that car has been doing most of the way through the race. I don't think it's ever done more than 21 laps, actually. No, it hasn't. Just looking back through the race, some of the other cars have been getting 22, but not the 48 yet. But no, that's fine. It's not costing them anything appreciable. And another nice clean pit stop for that team. Actually, Mike Rockenfeller taking over the wheel of that number 48 car. It was been just about 2 hours since Pagenaud climbed aboard that number 48 car. It's now Mike Rockenfeller who will take it on from here.
Speed, getting those Michelins warmed through. Quite a few of the teams, Jeremy, in the early running, the tyre allocation for the weekend started at the first free practice session on Thursday, as Ollie Clark brings the Mershank Racing Acura in. Watch this for us. There's going to be a driver change and full service for that car, so for Michelin's. A lot of teams actually scrubbing tyres in for particularly the night time hours. What's the thinking behind that, putting a bit of wear onto them?
Excuse me, John.
A lot of teams in the early part of the week scrubbing sets of tyres in, particularly for these nighttime hours.
That's right. Yeah, when the tyres are brand new, they have a kind of a sheen on them, and if you just break that sheen and just get down to the working part of it, if you like, then yes, they will spend a lot of time during the practice days just making sure that everything is in tune for the race. The tyres are ready to go. As you say, there's no tyre warmers, but at least the edge can be taken off the tyre, and so they have as good a grip as they're going to get right away off the mark with our leader into the pits as well.
And that's spot on time as well. Nick, that was a full change then for the number 48 and a new driver installed.
Should be on rotation Juan Pablo Montoya, but these change at night, as we know. It can get different, but I can't see why he wouldn't put one into the car. 3 laps again for Felipe Albuquerque and Chase Elliott, but Ollie Pla did 22 laps before handing his car in. So it's all up and down as we go. It is so dependent on traffic. You can sit behind and get a tow. You can save so much fuel. Or if you're lifting and coasting because you can't get past that GTLM car into the bus stop.
Juan Montoya confirmed in the Meyer Shank card. It was Mike Rockefeller that took over the Ally Cadillac machine. Jeremy?
Yeah, the two Acuras, they've been regularly getting 22 laps on each of their sets. Number 10 car for Konica Minolta team and number 60 for Meyer Shank Racing with Kurt Jr. They've regularly been getting 22s. The Cadillac's normally 21, occasionally 22. So certainly something to keep an eye on, particularly for much later in the race.
31 Whelen Cadillac in and out. Felipe Albuquerque, by the way, stayed in the number 10 Wayne Taylor Racing Acura, and Chase Elliott stayed in the 31 as Kevin Magnussen in the Chip Ganassi 01 comes in, having obviously taken over the lead, but this is that same pit stop cycle. They haven't split up too much since the last full course caution, which brought everybody in pretty much on the same lap. That was 1 hour 11 minutes ago. Nick Damon with his VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock report.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds like we're underplaying it, but it's really just cars turning laps, and they're doing a fantastic performance, because you go away and you come back through and all the cars are still running. It's very, very impressive, because they've managed to avoid the constant problems left, right and centre on every single lap you go past people.
Thank you, Nick. Ganassi car, Jeremy, also getting good fuel mileage, as well as the Cetilar leader in LMP2 comes in. That's the blue and green number 47, Giorgio Giotto. Now, door is open. Did he get out? Yes, I think he did. We're pulling a new driver into that car. Sometimes they fake us out and just hand in a new bottle. It looks like it's taking a long time. The key is, was it finished by the time the fuel came out? The answer is just about in that case. So they didn't actually lose much more than a second or two. And Cetilar Dallara heads back into the fray. Quite tricky pit exit here, Jeremy. Very easy to overshoot that and end up getting onto the grass, or worse still, hit the retaining wall 3/4 of the way round. And in the old days, when the pit lane speed limiter was at the beginning of that left-hander, quite a few people got a little over-ambitious with the throttle and cool tyres down through the years.
You're absolutely right, and it's happened at least twice this week. 2 or 3 times actually. I think the German driver Zimmermann was off, had an off there in the Tim Zimmermann in the Grass Racing Lamborghini. Alan Metney in the NTE Sport Audi also had a crash there during the practice sessions. In fact, missed the last practice session because they had to wait until last night. They needed some extra bits they didn't have. They were flown in from Detroit to get that car out for the race today. So there's at least 2 instances I can think of off the top of my head, so to believe me. So yes, it's not unusual at all, unfortunately.
A few people asking about the GTD Pro announcement that we got earlier this week. We'll talk about that when we next take a look at the current top GT class and maybe have a word with a couple of people in the current GTD category. But if you missed that, that was on early part of this week with IMSA saying that from 2022, so this race next year, the GT Le Mans factory GT class will disappear. Those cars will probably not be eligible. Some discussion about whether the Ferrari, I think the Ferrari is one of the ones that can be retro converted back down to a GT3 spec, and whether we've got a GM brand that could go into that is a question mark. But Laura Wantrup-Klauser, who is the new head of sports car racing programs, was talking to us on Wednesday on our magazine show Midweek Motorsport over on our sister channel RS1, and said they are looking at everything. It could be a Camaro, it could be a Corvette. If you want to listen to that, by the way, just go to imsaradio.com and you'll see the Midweek Motorsport side of the page. You can download it from there or you can listen on demand. Very, very interesting to hear. Let's go to a GT Daytona driver. May have some thoughts on this. Delighted to say that joining us in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre is Patrick Long. Oh, and just as we say that, he's disappeared from the line. Hello, Pat. I've got a feeling that noise that I heard meant that that's a disconnection. Yes, it is. We'll get him back in just a moment. The vagaries of technology. Pat, the ever-affable Californian. I think if you cut him in half, you would have the Porsche Shield somewhere. So we'll have a chat with him. He's in the 16 right Porsche. Pat Long, sorry about that. It's the vagaries of working in these strap times. Can you hear us now here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre? No, clearly not. Every time we try to talk to him, that's disappearing. How annoying is that? We'll give that one more go in a second. The car, I wonder if he is busy doing something at the moment. The car running in 7th in class at the moment for Light Motorsport. It's the teal blue Porsche, and Earl Bamber just getting a lap back from them in the number 88 Team Hardpoint Earl Bamber Motorsport Porsche. It's the lighter colour of the two Porsches on the infield at the moment. The right car, the number 16. Pace early on, Trent Hinman behind the wheels, 3 seconds behind Madison Snow in the Paul Miller Racing car. And they've had their trials and tribulations already in this race, but if we know anything about Wright, and we do, is number one, Jeremy, they know how to get Porsches to the end of motor races, and number two, they won't give up. Let's give it one more go with Pat Long. Pat, can you hear us now?
Hey, how are you guys? Yeah, I can hear you, Joe.
Hey, good to hear you, mate. First of all, how are you feeling?
A little banged up. I mean, three hours in a 4-hour period is about the old man's limit. But yeah, we're soldiering on. Unfortunately, as you guys probably have talked about, we got sort of collected by the 9 car, and the car's a little bit banged up. But just had to kind of keep my head in it and soldier through.
Yeah, a bit of Porsche on Porsche, Weissach on Weissach action going on there. Not ideal, but a damage just in front of the left rear wheel. How is that affecting the handling of the car, Pat?
The toe's knocked out a little bit, and the left rocker's got a big hole in it as well as the fender, so that's not doing us any favors on the straights. But yeah, that, and there's no left-hand mirror. So my first stint, I had no radio communication, and that was wild in itself. And then I get back in, and I'm all excited that I finally have a working radio, and I can hear the spotter. And then there's no left mirror. So yeah, we're gonna get this all behind us here and have a fresh car and a new perspective when the sun comes up.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Come on, it can't be that bad. At Sebring at the back end of last season, you ended up doing a full stint with a car that you had to make some changes to, found out you'd had a broken shock absorber, and you were still putting decent times in. This is a piece of cake compared to that, surely.
Well, I guess the heritage of Porsche and endurance racing is that they're tough cars. You run them hard, you rev them hard, and they keep going. So we're holding on tight and just trying to keep perspective.
Pat, we've been talking quite a lot, and the listeners tweeting in at IMSA Radio, of course, about GTD Pro for next year. You've driven in just about every category in IMSA down through the years, from the prototypes through the GT classes as well. IMSA had to do something about the situation in GT Le Mans. Is this the most elegant solution to have a pro, almost a works GTD, GT3 category?
Yeah, I think so. Sustainability, cost savings, globalization, all those things that I think LMDH and GT3 bring to the future of sports car racing. I like it. I'm all about fewer classes, fewer specifications, fewer driver ratings, and let's get back to 2 categories of cars and bring the best drivers out, and you can have a separate voting at the end, but we should just have 2 categories out there. That's my vote.
And will it bring more opportunity, I suppose, is what professional drivers are thinking about? We see a greater incidence now of young drivers who, you know, teens and early 20s, we'd normally expect to be in single-seater racing, who are coming into sports cars. Will it give them the opportunity to make connections with manufacturers, as you have done with Porsche down through the years?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those deals where I think that young drivers definitely have to get their shake on the grand stage, and that's what the long race has always represented for me, was a time to come in and join a regular season entrant. These days, man, I can't keep up with all the different categorizations and driver ratings and things. So if it's hard for me to follow, then it's really hard for the fans. And I just want it to be simple. And I want to protect the gentlemen, the real amateurs that put money into the economy of sports car racing. But I also don't think that, you know, if you're a professional, you earn money in this sport. If you're an amateur, you don't. So to me, it's pretty cut and clear.
Yeah, one earns money from the sport, the other one puts money into it, I suppose. You were talking about that incident earlier on that banged up the left-hand side of the cars. For those who have pictures and who are listening to us at the moment, we're going to say that again now. What exactly went on down there at Turn 1, Pat?
I only learned about it as I was jumping in the car. As the car arrived into the pit, I could tell that it had taken a pretty big hit. We were just getting ready to change drivers from Jan to myself, and apparently, you know, Steve Bartolotti, who's a stand-up guy and team manager over at Fast, sent a text message to John Wright and just said that Zach missed his braking point and got it wrong. But I mean, that's third-hand information, so that's what I know just getting out of the car now. I'm still sitting in my rental car in a wet racing suit, so I haven't gotten the full story or read anything online yet. But the bottom line is that it's tough, as Calvin calls it, argy-bargy racing out there, and we're just gonna look ahead and keep trying to push forward.
Listen, I know it's difficult getting changed and with all the protocols going on, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I do want to ask you one more thing, and it is Porsche related, if you don't mind. you mentioned LMDH, the new DPI category that comes in 2023 here at Daytona, and for IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Porsche have said, yes please, we'd like some. You're a student of the sport. Could this herald, and again, harking back to what you've just said about the gentleman driver, the customer driver, could this herald a whole new golden era, the like of which we perhaps haven't seen since the 956s and the 962 Porsches?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the Rob Dysons and the Bob Akins and the gentlemen of the sport who, put a car on the grid and put a professional driver in with them, you see some guys that are doing that. Ryan Hardowick is new to the sport and a consummate professional, and he's definitely brought an entry. Ben Keating, there's lots of them. John Potter. You'd hope that the John Bennett's of the world will keep a prototype in there and keep somebody like Colin driving with him. But at the same time, maybe you'll see some GT entrants, the gentleman entrants that want to have a go. And I think that controlling costs is going to be the #1 attractor to a more vast customer. So that and subscription from all the different manufacturers, which it seems they're lining up to get into this category. So I'm excited for the future of sports car racing, and I think that everybody wants to see good, hard fighting and close racing. And whether it's 2 seconds a lap quicker or slower, I think is almost irrelevant. These cars are so quick these days that let's focus on manufacturer involvement, technology transfer, street to road, and back and forth to the track, and get on with it. I think there's great racing out there right now. I think tonight the DPIs have proven that different manufacturers can give an aesthetic to their car and still run within spec. So I think it's looking up for the future.
You make an excellent point about the pace, to be honest, because anybody who saw the Idemitsu Mazda MX-5 races on Friday and Thursday, it doesn't matter what the lap time is compared to what is the fastest thing that could go around here. That was superb racing with 6 cars across the line in less than half a second at the end of the first race. Pat, thanks for joining us here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. Go and get yourself cleaned up, get some rest, and best of luck for the rest of the race. Be safe.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on, and enjoy the show.
It's Pat Long from Wright Motorsport Porsche, and he talking there about sitting in his rental car, still in his race suit. Because of the COVID protocols, a lot of drivers are coming in, they're already dressed, and therefore they're going back to their hotel or their RV, which is outside of the bubble in the infield, the RV parking. So when they come back again, they're going to go through the COVID protocols, take another temperature test, you get another sticker for your pass, and they're all colour-coded and have QR codes on them. So very nice of Pat. It's very uncomfortable sitting in damp racing overalls, being asked questions by people. That's possibly the only thing that Pat Long and I have in common, because I've been on the other side of that. Jeremy, a little bit of a problem, we think, for the Win Autosport Orica, running well up. It was in the LMP2 category. Tristan Nunez brought that car in a wee while ago whilst I was talking to Pat there in that VP Racing Fuel Pit Paddock update, and it's not left yet.
I think it might have come back in again. I think it's come back in again, actually. Because
you're right, it has come straight back in. You're right.
It came in, it spent a goodly part of the race, a goodly portion of the race in the lead of the category. It was running third when Tristan brought it in. There's a brake problem with the car. They were thinking it was a left front rotor, and they've changed that, and they think all was well, but now they think it's the car is back in the pits now. And I just heard from Jana Watt, thank you Jana, that they're actually going to change the other 3 rotors on that car as well. So it's to be a full brake change in effect now for that number 11 car. So it had lost a couple of laps, probably will lose a couple more now. In
the pit lane again, and they are looking at the doing a brake swap. They're doing the brake swap now. This is planned maintenance for these cars over the 24 hours. The brake discs, the rotors are coming off as well. But this is LMP2, so there's no additional long stop as the LMP3s have. So these guys are on the clock, Jeremy, at the moment.
Yeah, they changed the left front brake on the previous stop. They thought it was just a problem with that particular brake, but now they're changing all the other three as well. You're right, John. So it'll now go out with a fresh set of brakes, and it was a really good stop there by that Win Autosport team. Brand new team in name at least, but Bobby Golozinski, who's the co-owner of that team with Stephen Thomas, who's also driving in this race. Bobby's been around this sport a long time. He was a crew chief back in the IndyCar days. Actually, where I landed with Rancho Santa Margarita, California, he worked with Cal Wells' PPI team, amongst others as well. So hugely experienced, really good guy. Got a really good bunch of people working on that team. Michael Harvey is a team manager. There's a lot of strength and depth in that Win Autosport team.
So we're into the second half of the race. 12 hours and half a minute down, and nearly home now, except not quite. But that is another one, Nick Damon, of these little goals that people will want to tick off. Get to sunset, get to midnight on Saturday night, get to halfway through the race, and that's the only way I think you can tackle a race like this. If you consider the enormity of doing 700 plus laps around Daytona, it would scramble your brain, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are those very useful both timing and atmospheric things that change. The next one they're going for obviously is daylight, which is due in 2.5 hours, 2.75 hours. Because that's the next thing. The sun comes up, you can go, right, okay, now we can start looking what we have to do in the remaining 7 or 8 hours. But it's realistically, as we said before, the key point of this meat of the race is just to push without risk, as Lena Gabe would say, because you just don't need to take anything to dive bomb up GTE if you're a DPI. You don't need to send the slower cars. So what you've got to do is start turning those consistent laps and then just see where you are at the point where what you do can make a difference. I.e., when you start thinking that you may well be able to get away with that on yellow, then what conditions the car in, what conditions the drivers in for the last 2 or 3 hours, you really begin to push.
Yeah, that's that high noon we talk about in the Porsche keys to the race. What we love about endurance racing, and if you're with us now as we're heading towards 15 minutes before 4 o'clock in the morning, you probably do as well, is the ebb and flow. Not too very long ago, before we were speaking to Pat Long, Philippe Albuquerque had pulled out a wee bit of a lead. That's disappeared in the last 2 or 3 laps, and Mike Rockenfeller for Ally Cadillac Racing is now staring at the tailpipes and the rear section of that Acura. And Mike Rockenfeller is not one to be backwards in coming forwards, Jeremy Shaw. If he thinks he's got a better car right now, even though there's still half the race going, as they carve their way past the Sun Energy One GT3 car, the AMG GT3, if he thinks he's got a better car, he's going to have at least a try at getting past Philippe Albuquerque. He hasn't quite been there yet, but Rocky will give that a go, I reckon.
I completely agree, yes, and he's really taken to be back in a prototype again. It's been a little while since he driven a prototype car. He was here at Daytona a couple of years ago, but that was with the Corvette team. He's won this race previously in a prototype car, but the last lot of years his focus has been a DTM in Germany. I mean, they're pretty sophisticated cars, no question about it. But he's got right back in a prototype here. He's given a really good of account of himself this weekend. That is why they brought somebody like Rocky on board here to join this star-studded lineup in this 48 team. And he is well, more than holding his own.
And there it is, Jeremy. The 111 Grasser car. They go either side of it down into the International Horseshoe. I thought for a moment that the leader was going to be massively held up. Well, he was, but still managed to find a way through. And Albuquerque is battling now. They've got more traffic right ahead of them as they're at the far end. That is the 64 Porsche that they're going by at the western end of the infield, and there was an opening for a moment for Rockefeller. You make a good point actually about DTM, because if you strip a DTM car, yes, German touring car, Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft, it's a touring car in name only, because underneath it looks remarkably similar to an LMP2 chassis. What's hung around it, and the engine is in front of the driver rather than behind, although it's pushed very, very, very back. Wow, very, very impressive by Mike to be right back on the pace. And he thought for a moment, I think, that there was just one opportunity to go around the outside, while the 111 Grasser there, Ralph van Eyschen behind the wheel, was going to be his friend. Had to deal with the number 4 Chevrolet Corvette as well in all of that. Picked the left-hand side of the road going into the braking area at the International Horseshoe. Do you know what? I think he might have had his nose ahead for a picosecond, but no panic from the leader. Didn't do anything silly. Albuquerque clearly staking his claim to keep that lead into the second half of the race. Isn't it amazing, Jeremy, how we can be plodding along in the middle of an endurance race, and then suddenly it all kicks off again as if someone has fired up the gas to absolutely full power.
Brilliant. That was a great move, though, by both of those two. I mean, heads-up driving. You know, maybe there was an opportunity there, so he went for it. Then he realised there wasn't, so had to tuck it behind him. Great racing, yeah, but still, we're not at the halfway point in this race, are we? This is fantastic stuff. Just a tremendous motor race. Magnussen hanging on there in third place, still within 10 seconds. Chase Elliott, he slipped to 25 seconds back into fourth position, and now it's Juan Pablo Montoya who is chasing after Chase Elliott in the number 60 car. He's got that gap down now, actually down to about a second and a half. So I think within a lap or two, we're going to see Montoya trying to make a move on the reigning NASCAR Sprint Cup champion.
A lot of people on Twitter from around the world very impressed with Chase Elliott. And we'll talk more about his lap times and how he's adapting here. But at the moment, we're going to keep our eyes on the front of the field, past the Ferrari number 63, again into that area. And this is what it's going to be like for the rest of their stints. Around about 22 laps for the DPIs. So these guys have still got about 10, 12, 13 minutes maybe to go, 6 or 7 laps, and before they'll have to bring their steeds in for some additional VP Racing fuel. Through turn 6, which is the transition back onto the speedway, up on the high banks. Usual rules of etiquette apply. If you're slow, you stay low, and that allows the faster cars, normally the bigger downforce cars as well, of course, to be able to pick their line and go up over the top. Fascinating stuff at the moment. Join the conversation with us here in the wee small hours, the Night Owls portion of our coverage, very traditional with Rooftop Ray, and thanks to Chris and the rest of the production team from NASCAR Productions for making sure that we can still see the action out on the circuit and bring it to you. At IMSA Radio, hashtag R24 Radio. Through the trioval again, lights flashing from the leader. That's because there's traffic ahead. Pick your line, any line. Now you see you've got a prototype in front. Which way is he going to go? It's all very well when it's a GT3 or a GT Le Mans car. Another inside move. You would think, Jeremy, that we were closing in on the last couple of laps, not 11 hours and 50 minutes to go. But this is in track position could be important. We never know when the key point, the turning point of a race like this is going to come. It could be now, it could have been 4 hours ago, and we haven't realised the significance of it yet.
Yeah, there's something going on all the way around this racetrack all of the time. It's a tremendous motor race. We've got 49 cars starting this race. We've lost a few, but not that many really. I think there's only, maybe I guess it's 4 cars out of this race so far, but everybody else is running well. There's a few cars that have had some problems and lost quite a lot of ground, but they're still going to soldier on the best they can and hope to pick up some positions all the way before the end of the race. But the battle at the front is as intense now as it ever has been throughout this race so far.
We'll keep an eye on what's going on in the other categories, but by far the closest battle for position at the moment is for the lead of the race overall. We'll get through the next clock hour and then give you another Mazda in-race update from the other categories. Audi in problems down on the apron is never a good thing to be. This is one of the GT Daytona cars that has an issue, and that is the Alan Metni NTE Sport Audi. Alan at the wheel of that car. Jeremy and I have seen him an awful lot in the last few years, plying his trade and learning his craft in the Porsche Cup, the IMSA Porsche Cup, which is brand new for this year. It becomes the Porsche Carrera Cup North America, moving on to Michelin tyres. Alan's really done very, very well indeed as a gentleman driver, Jeremy, and he's using that experience, has been using it very well, but I think he's got mechanical issues there, maybe a tyre issue. Look like we're sitting down at the back, but he's still moving that car. That'll get back to the pit lane, we hope. And now, has there been a coming together with, well, there was the 11 was off as well. So that was a car that we were keeping our eyes on. That was a turn 6 going back up onto the high banks, steering from race control. So that was Tristan Nunes in the Renault Autosport at Orica. That car's having an awful few minutes. And that car has made it back to the pits, whereas Alan Metni is just through the bus stop and coming through. Some of the lights have gone out. Has he got it back to the pit lane? Yes, he has. So at least he's got it back for some kind of service. But I think he's going straight behind the wall here. Nick Damon, yes, he is.
Yep, straight behind the wall, which is obviously whatever has been diagnosed, he knows there's no point sticking it on the apron and then having to push it back. This is it needs the attention of the team and can't be fixed with a few men over the wall, so it's going straight back into the pit area. These mechanics running in front of him, and then he'll pull in and hopefully they'll be able to fix it relatively quickly.
Yeah, not the only one getting remedial work done in there.
He's just gone past Tristan Nunes again. That's Renault Sport car's back in there, I noticed, back in the pit. So that brake change didn't solve the problem. The car that was leading P2 an hour or so ago.
Yeah, good spot, Nick. They're both behind the wall. I don't think that was a connected incident. It was down at turn number 6. Oh, well, I say that. And of course, side-by-side contact between those two cars at turn 6. Jeremy Shaw, how did you read that one?
Yeah, well, it looked like number 11 car turned across and the 42 was already there, didn't it? You know, I don't know. I didn't see couldn't see it long enough before the actual contact to see where they had been relative to that beforehand, because the number 42 car certainly was well to the inside of the corner. Was he going slow and trying to let the other guy go past? In which case, why did he push it to the apex of the corner? So I don't know. I'd like to see a bit more of that. I think as we see the number 48 car right on schedule at 410. So this is another actually just a 20 lap stint. No, number 48 car was last in on lap 388. So this is a 22 lap stint for number 48 car.
Yeah, Mike Rockefeller staying in, but did get a new set of tyres, it looks to me. Did he not? They've got new boots, thank you. I can see them sitting behind the ones that came off. If you're used to watching WEC European racing, don't worry about the burnouts. They are not encouraged, certainly not discouraged. Not allowed in some other series. What is very much frowned upon, though, is turning wheels while you're up on the hydraulic jacks. That will get you a pit lane penalty. And we've already seen a couple of those handed out. In our Porsche Keys to the Race, we did mention rules. Shea Adam will be with us in a moment. She always reads the rule book, 158 pages, I think. And we're now hearing from Race Control that that incident between Alan Bettany and Tristan Nunez, the 42 and the 11, incident responsibility with the number 42. So that will be a drive-through when that car comes back out of the pit lane.
That's not quite how I see it, but I'm not race control. So.
It's the job I would never want to do at a racetrack, if I'm very honest.
I think what happened there probably is what I was perhaps alluding to, the fact that the 42 car was well to the inside, seemingly allowing the number 11 car to go around the outside. And if you're going to do that, don't get to the apex when the 11 car is turning in.
Correct.
I think that's probably what happened there.
The issue as well is that the GT cars actually are very good in the slower corners. They don't have the downforce, but they have got mechanical grip, so they do actually work rather well in the slower corners. And that may have been just a slight mistake from the drivers. More pit stops, and Chase Elliott is back into the pits, overshot slightly, but we've still got the fuel probe in there, Nick.
Yep, 20 laps of chase in that last run. I think we also have, who else was just trundled in behind him? Another piece of paper. It was Juan Pablo Montoya in the 60. He came in after a 21 lap race. Felipe Albuquerque should be in next time. He's done 21 laps already on this stint. I think it's his fourth stint, so probably he'll be getting out of the car and handing over to a teammate as they continue to turn around. Just to on your point about the GT Le Mans, GT Le Mans will pull away from a 50-mile-an-hour corner quicker than a DPI for the first 50 metres or so. They've got superb traction compared to the car that rely on downforce.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true indeed. And that can cause problems at racetracks all around the world. Philippe Albuquerque into the pit lane as well. In the number 10, black and blue Acura. And that looked to me like that was that just VP Racing Fuel as well?
Hard to tell that one because it became a difficult angle, but they're so quick getting the tyres on. They do seem to change the tyres every single time, so my guess is in the DPIs. The real question is whether the driver changes. If not, Albuquerque, I think this is going to be his fifth, isn't it, for Albuquerque? He stays on.
I will tell you as he...
Yeah, he's done fourth. He's done fourth. If he stays in, it'll be his fifth. But again, didn't have that view of exactly what was going on around the side of the car during the start and stop.
Winwood Racing, number 57 in, and that car is taking fuel as well as we welcome into the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre Shea Adam. Morning, Shea.
Hello.
Good to have your company. I'll ask you the question. It was Ricky Taylor, by the way, who took out the Acura. So Albuquerque did get out after the 4 stints of about 40 minutes or thereabouts. And also in the pit lane, 21 Daniel Serra AF Corsa Ferrari. Serra brought that in. I'll ask you the same question, Shea, as we come up to another clock hour at near as you know what, 4 o'clock in the morning. What's been catching your eyes then in the the last couple of hours, how the race is developing?
Watching drive time is what I've been interested in, and to be honest, mildly frustrated because the most recent stint analysis that has been posted online does not have comprehensive drive times associated with it yet. So when that does, I will let you know who has completed their drive time. But yeah, trying to figure out in the AM classes, who are we not going to see again for the remainder of the race? Who do we need to see a lot more of? And then, of course, as far as championship points are concerned, we did have more Michelin Endurance Cup points handed out. I want to know who's leading those classes too.
Talking to the guys at Gradient who are running the 75 Sun Energy racing cars. Kevin Magnussen has brought in Cadillac Chip Ganassi car from the lead. That's Cadillac. Just talking to, as I say, the Gradient guys who are running the Sun Energy number 75 about what they're doing with drive time, and they were trying to get Kenny Bull, who is their full AM driver, through most of his drive time, and they soaked quite a lot of it up in one or two of the yellow flag periods. And as I think it was Michael Waltrip who said to me at Le Mans when he was there with the Ferrari team a few years ago, when I was asking him how he was adapting to this form of racing. He says there's two places where I'm just as good as everybody else, and that's when I've got my foot down the Mulsanne straight going flat out, and when the safety car is out. You don't gain any time in the safety car. It's brilliant. I've always remembered that from Michael Waltrip. He was very generous. But that's true, and good teams will work this out if they can see an opportunity to get some time soaked up under a race that has been neutralised. Then they're not gaining any ground, but neither are they losing any ground, and those minutes count. It doesn't count if you're sitting in the pit lane, but it does count if you're out behind the safety car under yellows.
No, you're spot on, John. And I've actually just looked up after race hour 11. So keep in mind, this is a full hour and 20 minutes ago. Kenny Habul had not completed his driver time as of then. He had 3 hours and 55 minutes of track time, but not that additional 35 minutes that he needs to get to the 4.5 hour mark. So Kenny still owes us a little bit of time, assuming he has not been back in the Sun Energy 1 Mercedes, which I don't think I've seen his name on the timing screen for the last hour.
I will have a quick look at the 75 unofficially to see what the driver stint situation is. 3:58 and 6 seconds. That's unofficial, and the reason that Shea is talking about the printouts, because those are official and signed off by IMSA and Alcamel, the timekeepers, and they take account of in and out of pits and that sort of thing. So, but that's a good guide, Shea, so you're spot on. It looks like you need somewhere in the region of 35 minutes, which is a wee bit under one more stint for him in that car, I reckon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But again, that can be served under a safety car, under anything. If we get the possibility of a long safety car, they could very easily eat that time up.
So we've got a couple of decent battles at the front of the field, and just after 4 o'clock in the morning at Daytona. First and second, shall we call it half a second? It's barely that, a little bit more. It could be about to come down as they head into the braking area at turn 1, through the tri-oval across the line now. And Ricky Taylor, who's taken over the black and blue number 10, has to go round a little bit of prototype traffic. That's always a tough one. Ricky has just got back in there, that car, whereas Mike Rockenfeller's been in the car that's chasing him down, the number 48 Ally Cadillac, for a wee while. So he's got his eyes in, really, you would say, in stick and ball sports, wouldn't you? Behind them, about another 30 seconds, Juan Montoya is in the purple and black Acura of Meerschacht Racing with Curb Akajanian, and he's got about a second on Felipe Nasser, who's been plugged back in to the number 31, the red and white Whelen Engineering Cadillac. So two good battles in the top 4, and that top 4 all on the same lap, all on the lead lap. Let's call it 33 seconds. between those cars. 3 wide on the banking as Nasser is right up on the wall coming out of Speedway Turn 2, but he can see his prey ahead of him, and when you've got something to aim for, Nick Damon, that really does, it just make your heart get a little bit quicker. You can see where they're braking, you can work out where you perhaps are a little stronger, they're a little weaker. Wherever you are in your stint, do you decide to push harder, or as you were talking about before, do you sit in and save some fuel?
Shall we ask driver, as we have Ian James on the line from the Heart of Racing team. Ian, did you hear that last bit? I mean, what is the tactics you go through the stint? Are you pushing? Are you holding back? What are you doing as you go along?
No, I think, we're pushing flat out. I mean, it's so close there. We're trying to stay on the lead lap, and there's so much jockeying and pit stops, and yeah, it seems like it's flat out every hour nowadays.
Yeah, we've talked to some of the luckier drivers who are in the faster cars. I mean, how difficult is it to drive consistently and steadily when you're permanently looking in your mirror for something that's dive bombing you every corner?
Well, to be honest, we had a restart earlier on in the race, and we were like third or fourth in line. So then we had basically 45 cars trying to pass us, and it's pretty harrowing when you've got cars on both sides and you're trying to keep your own car on the track. That's for sure.
Apparently, you also had a bit of a whack with the #1 Lamborghini earlier on. Is the car okay?
Yeah, we lost a little side fence on the diffuser, but I don't think that's going to hurt us too much. So yeah, car's good, car's strong. It's not really set up for the night, so it's a little bit of a struggle in the bus stop, especially. But well, hopefully, when the temperatures come back up, we'll come back into tune, as it were.
That's really interesting. You've been talking about the ebb and flow of the cars up front, the DPIs, as we've gone through the various change of temperature. Could you explain to the listeners then, what do you mean by it's not set up for the dark? What have you done, and why have you done that? Which seems odd to make your car slower than it needs to be.
Well, it's really hard to change like the aero balance, and at night in the colder weather, it tends to go to a bit more of an understeery car, which hurts us in the bus stop in direction change. But as the temperature comes up, that goes away and it becomes more neutral and faster. And obviously, that's at the end of the race, so it's harder for us to change the aero balance, because the DPIs and that they can make a quick change. For us, we're kind of set with what we got.
Ian, it's signed off here at the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Thanks for being with us. What's the mood like in the Heart Racing team? You're a big fan favourite for as much for what you do off the track as what you do on it. How are you guys feeling right now?
Every time we get to come to the track, it's an honour, and we're having a blast. We obviously take it seriously, but we enjoy our racing as well. So, we're pretty positive. We've been bouncing around in the top 6 most of the race, and we're ready for 4 hours to go. We'll see what we've got, hopefully.
Explain a little bit about Heart of Racing and what that means in terms of your activities away from the circuit with the team.
Yeah, the Heart of Racing is, it's a race program, but on the side of that, we raise money for pediatric cardiac research for kids here in Seattle, and the Guild has raised over $7 million to date, which has helped put a lot of machinery and stuff in Seattle Children's Hospital. So every time we're on the track, we're helping some of the kids a better chance going forward.
Just to finish off, great stuff, by the way, on that. It's something that we all support here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. I have to say, you guys are taking social distancing in the team to a whole new level, with literally some of your team members on the other side of the world at the moment. Give us some news on that situation.
Yeah, well, team patron Gabe Buell, he's in New Zealand. One of our teammates, Alex Riveras, is over there, Darren Kelly. So we have a racing program over there that they're pretty lucky with the COVID situation. So they're chilling in New Zealand, and we're racing in America, and I'm sure we'll be racing in many other countries in the near future.
Ian, I know how difficult it is to get in and out the track and get yourself prepared, so thanks for taking some time for talking with us. Wish you a clean run, race well, be safe.
Thanks, John, and thanks for all the work you guys do. We love hearing your voice.
It's our pleasure, literally it is. Ian James from Heart of Racing and the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Darren Turner in that car running a strong 4th position, about 40 seconds away from a podium position at the moment, chasing down actually that Synergy 1 Mercedes that we've been talking about, the number 75 car. Scott Dixon, 5th position now. Shea Adam, did I see a penalty being called for Scott Dixon in the 01?
You know when there are some penalties that are just so egregious you put them on a bingo card because you think they'll never, ever, ever be called?
But really weird ones.
Yeah, well, no, the ones that are just really flagrant that you think, no one's going to go 25 kilometers an hour over the speed limit in the pit lane.
Excellent.
Yep, it elicited the 01 machine of Scott Dixon a stop plus 20 penalty, which he has served, and now he's fighting his way back up. But that is a big miss over the limit, and methinks that's finger trouble coming out of where the pit lane limiter used to be, getting on the loud pedal, and then remembering, oh wait, I still have to go through the Michelin RFID readers. I'd better slow. Oops.
Yeah, explain about those, Shea. We have in past years, and actually it's often caused some issues getting out of the pit lane because it's really very tight coming out the pit lane. You trace a tighter inside line through turn 10 and rejoin effectively in between turns 2 and 3, excuse me. And it used to be just at the entrance to that left-hand turn, but that was a bit dangerous for this new technology that Michelin have, these RFID chips. I mean, you don't have to have those markings on the side of the tyre, they automatically are red. So somewhere somebody's got a list of exactly how many tyres each car have used, so they had to move it. Why did they have to move it?
Basically to try and protect the equipment, given the exit of the pit lane where it used to be, it was exposed straight to the track. And a few years ago, actually, we had cars crashing down through there, and they totally would have taken out those very expensive machines from Michelin. So they've decided to move them a little bit further down the pit lane, as Ray is demonstrating. Thanks, Ray. Good to know you're up there. And put them in a much more protected area. It's a bit like when a hurricane's coming in and you move all your stuff in from the patio because you don't want it to get blown around. That's what Michelin did. They moved it to a safer location. But yeah, you're spot on. The tire allocations for the weekend are set, and every single tire equipped with an RFID chip. So as soon as they drive out the reader, Michelin knows exactly who is on what tire and whether or not they've used that tire before.
Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? And you might think that that's a great application of technology that's come out of racing. But actually, talking to our colleagues at Michelin, it came from tracking truck tyres, heavy goods vehicle tyres. It's been in that side of things for quite some time. Really important to know for the haulage companies around the world what their trucks are doing, and at their various depots you can just scan them, quickly walk around, so you don't even have to be able to do it in the daylight or anything like that, because it's an RF, radio frequency ID chip. And somebody, some bright spark, said, hey, that could save us a load of work in motor racing. And I'm hearing from Michelin that street tyres will be getting the same kind of technology in the relatively near future for passenger cars. So there's some clever things that they can do with that in passenger car tyre technology. Always learning at Michelin. And they've been a great partner for motor racing down through the years, and every car, of course, in this 59th running of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, running on a set of tyres with the smiling face of Babenda on the side. It was pretty good actually for well over 100 years old. I think he's lost a bit of weight recently. Rather than putting on the COVID-19, I think he may have taken them off. It's IMSA Radio around the track on 107.9 on Sirius XM. Sirius 216 XM 202, and of course around the world in sound and vision on imsaradio.com. And we welcome our US fans and audience to the visual part of our presentation as well, as we're on the Night Owl slot before we hand back to our colleagues at NBC for their run to the checkered flag. They're all getting a bit of shut-eye at the moment and missing some fantastic racing, to be quite honest. So still just under 11.5 hours to go, and Ricky Taylor leads by 1.5 seconds from Mike Rockefeller in the 48. 10 Acura from 48. Then it's the first the Cadillacs, of course. Then red and white Whelen 31 is another 27 seconds further back, and just 2 seconds ahead of Juan Montoya, who hasn't quite been able to close that gap. So first and second, 1.7 seconds, and third and fourth, 1.7 seconds. Then about 50 seconds back to Scott Dixon after that whoopsie and the comprehensive pit lane speeding that was penalised. And he has got, with them coming across the line, 24 seconds on Jonathan Bomarino for Mazda Motorsport. They lost a lap early on. They actually had some trouble with Ollie Jarvis getting it out on the formation lap. A problem with first gear, but a quick bit of ones and zeros fired into the gearbox controller sorted that out. So they did take the start, albeit right at the back. Lost a lap. Then they failed to get that lap back with a bit of miscommunication on the radio, which Larry Holt of Multimatic was not very happy about. And then when they came in thinking they were going to get their lap back, and another yellow, they've had a problem with the rear section, the tail of the car, and that cost them extra laps. So they're sitting actually now 3 laps off the lead and 2 laps off the cars in front of them. Scott Dixon is the closest to them, as I said, by 24 seconds. Timothy Buret is behind the wheel of the Tower Motorsport Oreca, which leads LMP2 from Roberto Lacorte for Chettilar Racing in the Dallara. The number 47 car is the Dallara meet in the Oreca Bread there, with Dragon Speed bracketing them and with Tower. And that's Chris Meese, the Audi GT driver in the number 82 car, getting some LMP2 experience. Then it's Ryan DL, who is a lap down, but trucking on for Era Motorsport. What is it, 9:15 in the UK, so the UK waking up. And I saw that a number of the Scots were up early this morning, exceptionally cold north of the border in the UK. Bit of snow up there. Duncan Vincent, I know, is tuned in and was cheering on Ryan, who said he'll be pushing on. RWR Eurasia another lap further back in 5th position in the 51 Ligier. In GT Le Mans, it's Corvette 2.5 seconds. That's about as much as they have been apart throughout the whole race. Alexander Sims and Nicky Katzberg in the 4 and the 3, so they have turned round again. It started off with the 4 and the 3, went to the 3 and the 4 for about 4 or 5 hours. Now it's back to the 4 and the 3, running in that order. 6.5 seconds further back, Jesse Cron in the number 24, the darker coloured BMW, almost a grey-black. Philippe Eng is 15.5 seconds behind his teammate in 4th position, and only a second ahead of Alessandro Perghidi. So the red BMW Team RLL number 24, the red 25 and the red 62 are in fact just a second apart. Obviously that's BMW and Ferrari. In LMP3, it's all started to break up a little bit. Riley Motorsport in the Ligier leads by 3 laps from Mueller Motorsport, who started on pole. Kenton Cook still behind the wheel of the 6, trying to make up some time on the 74, but the lap times are pretty much identical. Sean Creech Motorsport, Lance Wilsey behind the wheel of the 33 car in 3rd, that's Alicia, and he's 90 seconds away from Kenton in 2nd. In GTD, Eddie Doncher leads for Winwood Racing in the AMG GT3, that's the 57 car, on their debut in this category in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. They've been regular IMSA Pilot Challenge runners in the past with GT4 cars. AF Corsa and Ferrari number 21, Daniel Serra, is about 25 seconds further back, and then just over 30 seconds further back in third. In the third position is the Sun Energy 1 Mercedes GT3 Lucas Stoltz in that third spot in the car that's been run by Gradient. That's your Mazda in race update. Nick Damon has this interview as part of our VP Racing Fuels pit and paddock report.
Yeah, with great pleasure, I welcome the Liberty Motorsport Person of the Year. It's Felipe Albuquerque. Felipe, great to have you on the show. Just give us an idea of how you feel being the Person of the Year of Liberty Motorsport as you were voted just recently.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, yeah, pretty honored because I think you guys are in a good consideration, and I really appreciate as the Personality of the Year. Chosen by you guys and voters, it means a lot because your public is the one that look the most on in these races, and yeah, found for what I did last year. So thanks a lot to everyone that is listening and to you.
We're into 2021. This is the first big race. Look, a very general question. How's it been going? The first half of the race is done. The car is in contention, but then again, so is just about every other DPI. How do you feel the number 10's been running, with the Acura's been running?
Yeah, it's great, and it's a new chapter for me. I mean, with Acura and with racing, it's going on. So it's interesting now to see how they operate inside, and I've been for the last 5 years fighting them, and yeah, and I've been able to drive for them tonight, and actually now leading the race was good. Yeah, the first half was okay. Quite aggressive, everyone in the beginning, in the first 3 stints. Kind of chaotic with LMP3s and a bunch of GTDs as well, so a lot of cars to deal with that. And yeah, so far, there's only one moment where 2 cars spun, one guy on the outside and another one on the inside on P6, that I was avoiding one and nearly crashed the other one. But I guess it's part of the racing. It's never easy, and sometimes we can get caught in traps. Yeah, and then this one now we are just trying to survive the night. But even then, like the 48 was in my mirrors all the time and just trying to manage that. And again, we have the hours for the NAC in first, which is good, but we just want 24 hours win.
Philly, let's hide off here in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Thanks for joining us. You were having that really great battle with the Cadillac. That's a car that you know very well. Does that help you to know where that car is strong, or better still, to know where your Acura now is stronger?
I think sometimes it's worse because I keep thinking where they are strong, and I want that. we always want what we don't have, right? And it goes back in life and everything. But yeah, I could picture, because was my engineer, Ian Watt, is doing the engineering of that car, the 48. So I could imagine him on the wall, like, and I know it very well. We have a great relationship. I know how he was thinking, and all the drivers, because Rockenfeller was more secure in Audi, so I know him very well. He's a good friend, and yeah, we were having fun there. But and Rocky as well knows me very well, and as well Liam. You know, Express, they know how I operate. It's good to know who are we fighting, because we know what to expect, and we know that both of us will do anything silly. We will be obviously. I knew that Rocky shouldn't have like he would, but not do it. So that's good fun when we are like that.
I've got one more before I hand you back to Nick. clearly we've got just under half of this race still to go. We've been talking about getting to midday today, and then the last 3 hours and 40 minutes. Part of that equation is having resources left at the end of the race. How have you guys been managing your tyre allocation? Have you been double stinting some of the Michelin tyres during the night, or have you been putting brand new cooled Michelins on at every fuel stop?
No. Since we started night, we are doing 2 tires only, tank, and then double stick the other one, and one off the side. So we are, like everyone, actually, everyone is on the same strategy now, getting to the night, getting the tires ready for the last stint. So yes, we were taking care of it, and it was just who was on what they were doing the degradation now, because I had to manage those tires. Obviously, I think I have quite a good experience with that, because in WEC and Le Mans, we have to double steam, sometimes triple steam the tires. So taking care of the long life of the tire helps a lot. And yes, that's why I was not taking sometimes so much, because we knew that I was going double steam the tires on one side. And yes, so to be fresh for you.
During the course of the first few hours, different cars in the DPI class being quicker at different times. I mean, how much non-tyre related, how many sort of non-tyre related changes can you make at the stops? Are you doing small aero changes, or have you basically got a platform that's got to run all through the race?
Well, the DOP that we got doesn't allow us not even from the beginning to change nothing, and we can change 0.2% of the car balance, so we don't have range to adjust the car. No, but at the moment we are happy about the car. But even when you change something on the car, you will lose a lot. You could eventually lose a lot. So no, we are not going to do anything. The car is good, thankfully, and it's just tires and fuel, driver tanks, and all things at the end. Obviously, taking care of the car off the front through the bus stops, and we have the fastest car we can for the last when the day comes, and see how the balance is. Hopefully we get a little bit stronger, because at the beginning of the race the Cadillac were for the night. Let's see if they ever help a little bit more our car than there. Let's see how it goes. But, like you guys said, it's still 11 hours to go. What happening? The car number 5 that he was really quick, having problems. So let's see who's falling off until then.
Felipe, thanks very much, mate. Go and grab some sleep. Cheers, Felipe.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Philippe Albuquerque from the car that is leading at the moment. And that is the Ricky Taylor number 10 machine. Alexander Rossi and Elio Castroneves, the other two drivers. The Portuguese then in with the American crew. Shea Adam.
Do my eyes deceive me, or does the 10, where its leader light should say number 1, say 10?
It's been like that for hours. It has been like that for hours. It was, I think, a couple of stints ago for me, but you're absolutely spot on. There's a few cars where the self-illuminated number panels aren't working. That's not so much of an issue here at Daytona. That would get you pulled in at Le Mans, because it's so dark out the back. The corner workers can't find it more difficult to identify the cars. They're very good, they know all the cars, but you know what I mean, to be absolutely certain, particularly for video evidence nowadays. But that leader light number, which is just beside the number, is as you say, showing the number 10. Sean Creech Motorsport, the third place car in LMP3, is off the circuit, and that is turn 1. Got it fired back up again, and it will continue. So Lance Wilsey, who is behind that car, he gets back on in front of the 63 Ferrari, the Scuderia Corsa car. Let's do a couple of updates. Shea Adam has been making sure that the team contacts aren't getting any sleep either at the moment. What have you got, please?
Sorry, group chat, if I'm up, you're up. We have two cars of note that we need to talk about. The 42 NTE Audi of Alan Metney that we saw have the contact earlier on with the Win Autosport LMP2 car. Both cars are back out on track. Well, I say that, but Metney did just make a trip down the pit lane. That car was behind the wall and in the garage. They had to fix broken toe links, plural, because the steering was not functioning as it should have. Now the car back out, and it does seem to be turning left and right, so good news there. Metney's still behind the wheel of that Audi. And I'm sorry to report to Lamborghini fans, but both of the Grasser Lamborghinis from GRT have retired officially. The 111 car, which was wearing that number because Lamborghini has won the last 3 years in a row, that car was several laps down. They have finally retired it. We believe it is because of that plaguing electrical gremlin that they've been dealing with all week long.
Felipe Nasser into the pit lane in the number 31. That is another spot-on stint. It's going to be 22 laps when he rolls across. Oh, no, it's not actually. It's a 20-lap stint for Felipe when he rolls across the start-finish line, which he will do any second now. The transponder, which he's just done, right in the middle of pit lane. So that makes that a 20 lap stint. That's his first since he took the car off from Chase Elliott round about a half an hour ago, a little bit more than that, about 32, 33 minutes. The other car that you were, did you do both of the updates there, GRT and NTE? Shea? Sorry, I was looking. Yes, you did, didn't you? Because you
I did, but I have another Metney update,
okay.
Unfortunately.
I'm psychic.
Car 42, penalty, speeding on the pit lane. +1 has elicited that car another drive-through, and we've got a car stopped on track at turn 2. Maybe Ray can spot this. We've got the 48 in the pit lane. That's Mike Rockenfeller. New boots for him. He is not getting out of that Allied Cadillac as they are doing fuel and tires. So that's a very good spot by that pit box. The Express crew who is fielding that car, very, very nifty at this sort of thing. And they do have a nose for when a car might be causing an issue. And it is, in fact, car number 7, which is the LMP3 machine of 47 Motorsports. It is stopped on course. Let's see if I can find it on timing and scoring. I'll let you know if it makes it back around into the pit lane. But Mark Vame took it out of the pits quite some time ago now, 15 minutes. Spot on 22 laps for Mike Rockenfeller. This will be the start of his 3rd stint. If you're watching timing and scoring and wonder why Scott Dixon's made an extra pit stop, don't forget he had blown through the speed limit and therefore had to come in for not just a drive-through, it was a stop and hold, and that's what's pushed the number 01 Cadillac down. He'll be in a couple of 3 laps time, as will in fact the leader Ricky Taylor. Oh, in fact, as I say that, Nick Damon pit stop for the Konica Minolta Acura.
As if by magic, almost like you conjured the car up there, John, isn't it? Yeah, so it's full service, no driver change, so fuel, 4 tyres, drink bottles, nothing else going awry, so they're not having to fill any fluids at the moment, as the Acura, which is rotating for the lead with a number of the Cadillacs. So interesting, one Montoya in the 60 Meyer Shank Racing Acura is also now up there. So we're seeing a kind of a coming together of those top 5 cars, the 3 Cadillacs and the 2 Acuras, with the noticeable left behind being the Mazda, the 55 car that's never really got going after having gearbox issues right at the start, and of course the Mustang sampling Cadillac that's had some problems and lost about 4 laps. As in comes Juan Pablo.
Shea Adam is watching this one.
This is fuel and tires. Juan Pablo Montoya not getting out of the Meyer-Shank Racing Acura that he's very used to driving. Last year it bared the number 6. This year it bears the number 60. And when it bared the number 6 the year before, actually 2 years before, he and Dave Cameron, sharing the car full season, drove it to a championship victory. They're now at about 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and go. There we go, full load of fuel in that Acura. I love the Montoya. This kind of power I could get used to.
Yeah, into the acceleration lane. Hello to Marcus Miller. He's tuned in. David. David, who his Twitter handle is David AMG, but is in Weissach, which is the home of Porsche Motorsport. Hello, David. How do you make the BOP for these cars? What can be changed to bring the cars onto the level playing field? It's a very good question. IMSA have a technical department with computing power that would rival NASA, to be honest, and they collect an inordinate amount of data from the cars. So last week at the Raw, for example, David, they were taking data sticks effectively out of the cars share at fairly regular intervals, and there's actually quite large penalties for people who don't turn in their data stick within a requisite amount of time.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting principle what IMSA has set up. Every 4 times a race, so every 6 hours in effect, you have to take the data stick out of your car, take it to IMSA within 15 minutes of removing it from the car. They do that so that you don't fiddle with anything. You don't plug it into your computer and change what the data coming out of the car said, which you can do if you're smart enough with computer programs and manipulating that sort of thing. So they've made it so that you have to change your data stick between hour 5 and 7, i.e. within the first 6 hours, hour 11 and 13, halfway through the race, and then hour 17 through 19, I think was the other one. So they give you those opportunities. And then, of course, when the car goes into Parc Ferme after the race, IMSA themselves will remove the data stick, or your team manager can pull it out and bring it to IMSA, but once again, within the set period. If you don't do that, it can result in disqualification.
Yeah.
During a session, if you miss it after a practice session, they hold you in the pits for 5 minutes of the next session, which tends to be about 12% of the session. So they are quite big penalties for messing around with data sticks.
And then all that data, as you say, data is taking up to the Charlotte Technical Centre. The numbers are crunched, including from some sensors that are independent of the car manufacturer's sensors. So it's not just like the team says, oh yeah, we can give you throttle position. Yeah, that just comes off here, and you know, it doesn't always just work like that all through the
Come on, a professional racing team would gain a sensor. That would never happen. Certainly not by the biggest racing team in the world, that's for sure.
Maranello. Yes. But they don't do it because they have independent sensors here. In comes the 01, by the way. And as far, Dave, as what can they use to do it? Fuel, tank size, you can have restrictors. We've seen in the past even gear ratios being changed by IMSA. They've been working very hard on these DPIs down through the years, and they seem to have got things pretty good. They're going to have to start all over again, of course, with the new iteration in 2023, and with the added complication of hybrid power. At least it's going to be a spec hybrid system, so that at least will take out one of the variables. Quick update on that stop there, Shea Adam. What was going on in the pit lane?
It was fuel, tires, windshield clean. Chip Ganassi's boys and girls very adept at doing pit stops in the car, as a matter of fact, was only stopped in the box for a total of 31 seconds. Scott Dixon now back out onto the racetrack. And the reason that I say 31 seconds being relevant, the maximum amount of fuel that it takes from an empty tank to a full tank in a DPI car is a 30-second fuel drop. So that means that the car was either almost empty and they filled it up perfectly, or no, we'll just give it to Chip Ganassi. We'll leave it with that.
Yeah, okay. 55, Jonathan Bomarito will be next to the DPI's in at the end of the lap that it's on. So before that happens, let's give you a quick rundown of what's going on as we're coming to the end of the 13th race hour, starting GTD this time. For the mere reason that that's where I happen to be looking on the timing screen for something else. Indy Dodgy leads for Winward Racing, and Mercedes AMG GT357 has 20 seconds on AF Corsa, and that's the Ferrari number 21 with Daniel Serra. Lucas Stoltz still holds on to third place ahead of Darren Turner, but there's nearly a minute between those two, and then 12 seconds back to Ryan Sellers from Paul Miller Racing in the number 1 Lamborghini. The top 6 made up by Wright Motorsport, struggling with that out of kilter left rear wheel that Pat Long was telling us about early on. It's Trent Hinman behind the wheel there. In LMP3, it is Riley from Mulner, but there's 3 laps between those, and then even with that little half spin a few moments ago for Lance Wilsey in the 33 Sean Creech Motorsport car, he still holds on to third position in class. In GT Le Mans, Alexander Sims from Corvette Racing leads Nicky Catsburg from Corvette Racing by all of 3 seconds, 4 from 3. They are being caught, however. That is a battle. We'll take a look at that in a wee moment. Half a second between Corvette number 3 and Jesse Kron in the 24, the dark grey stroke black BMW. Alessandro Perchides another 18 seconds further back in 4th position for Racing Competizione. In LMP2, 7th overall now for Tower Motorsport with 43 seconds of a lead from their number 8 car driven by Timothy Piret to the number 47 Cetilar Racing de Lara with Roberto Lecourt in the driving seat. And he has got quite a distance actually at the moment, showing us a full lap on Fabian Schiller for Dragon Speed in 3rd position. At the top of the shop, it's Ricky Taylor by 21 seconds from Mike Rockefeller for Ally Cadillac Racing, 10 from 48, Acura from Cadillac, then another 17 seconds back to 3rd, Felipe Nasser in the 31 Cadillac. Juan Montoya now 8 seconds further back in 4th place in the number 60, the blue and black car, the purple and black car, and Scott Dixon in that sort of chalk-coloured Chip Ganassi Cadillac. The 01 car is in 5th position, but another 47 seconds back. That's how it stands, and we've got a problem out on the racetrack. That was Nico Lapierre that's just left the pits in that 52 Wins sponsored machine, and he's had contact. That was your Mazda in race update, and we've just gone through another race hour. The next 60 minutes of racing starts right now. So turn 3 is just at the back of the pits, and Shea Adam, I thought I saw fire in, I thought I saw the car fired up, and it does look as though it had some forward momentum for a moment. The windscreen wiper off the screen tends to mean it's not somebody who's been out there asking for a couple of dollars to clean the windscreen. That normally means it's had a pretty lurid spin and the air's got underneath it.
Yeah, and I apologize for my explanation. I looked up from the screen to see one of Ben Keating's cars that he has completed drive time, and I believe now parked on the side of the racetrack, so that is rather unfortunate for the Texan. But yes, the car not moving as of yet. There are marshals nearby to the car as the guardrail sits. The ground behind the guardrail actually gives you a good viewing platform at that part of the track, but Nico has not been able to get the car going once again. The lights are still on the side, meaning that it does still have some sort of electrical power going to it, but Nico has not been able to get the car rolling. This doesn't look good for the wins, number 52.
Full course yellow. It was somewhat inevitable. Got to give credit to race control again as we go yellow for the 7th time after 2 hours and 32 minutes of green flag. And when that was coming, they gave time to see if Nico Lapierre, who was on his outlap from the pits, by the way, to see if he could get back going. A number of people dived in, including Ryan DL in the 18. I thought he might have stayed out and tried to get the lap back. Ollie Gavin came in the number 14. That's the Vassar Sullivan Lexus. Timothy Bure from the lead of LMP2 came in just before the full course yellow as well. In fact, Ollie Gavin came in and went straight behind the wall in the RCF. So that's something for our VP Racing Fuel Pit paddock reporters to get onto and find out what has happened there.
Guys also came in just prior to the yellow being shown. So Alexander Sims and Nicky Katzberg in the Corvette Racing and Jesse Kron in the BMW. So the top three all came in and are running through their rotation at the moment. I don't think anyone's changed driver. I think they've all stayed on board, those three, Sims, Katzberg and Kron. The rest of the LMP2 field, like vultures circling over one of their own, have come in for a free pit stop as well. Timothy Bureau in Town Motorsport, Andrea Fuoco in the City. They are racing Dallara. Go Dallara! The reason I say that is because the iRacing LMP2 is the Dallara. You say Ryan here in Motorsport. So yeah, a lot of people took in the lower classes took the opportunity, but all the DPIs, having just done a stop, have all stayed resolutely out and not gone for a little bit of a top-up.
That's Nick Damon with that VP Racing Fuel Pit and paddock update. Looks like Nico is extricating himself from the car. He's being talked to at the moment for the team. Let's see if we can find out what happened with our wonderful replay team, who I still with great love call the Tape Apes. Out of the pits. Well, now that was interesting, because that is, it's the there was another prototype right in there that with the purple marker lights on the top. It wasn't the Ali Cadillac, but was the side-by-side contact, because there's some debris on the circuit at the point that those cars were very close together. Thank you, Chris, and everyone in the truck for finding that. Excellent work. Just remember that car just come out of the pits, and if there wasn't a touch, it was very, very close indeed. And thanks to Jared, our director, and the rest of the team for pulling that out.
Might have been avoidance, which ended up putting one wheel.
Correct. Yes, exactly right, Nick. Could have been that.
And it was the Performance Tech car that was alongside of it, the
Right.
38 LMP3 machine.
Yeah, okay. It is, that is quick. Even coming out the pits there, you've just come off the pit lane speed limit, and you try and get up to speed. You have to stay to the left-hand side of the blend line. Nico Lapierre, very experienced driver, just in fact bought into his own team now, what used to be Cool Racing. And he'll be running cars in championships in Europe in the LMP2 category. Thought of an LMP3 as well from Nico and his partners. I believe he's staying in the car, and well, the bad news is if he stays in the car, he's going to get a free lift back if he has stayed in the car, because the flatbed has arrived. So sorry, say again, Nick.
That looked pretty serious where it was cartwheeling down the barriers. That's not going to be the work of a moment. At least it's knocked off various parts of bodywork. I mean, he might be lucky and get away without suspension damage, but I'd be very surprised. The medical centre guys are there as well, because he had a bit of a shock as he came off at not massively high speed.
Standard operational practice to have the AMR safety crews there in the Cayenne, and they'll be the ones who were talking to him So the Performance Tech car with the purple lights was out on the track, and the car that's ended up in the barriers, 52 with Nico Lapierre, well, that's at least 2 full spins, and it is slightly downhill from the edge of the track. Impossible to tell whether there was a touch there. I do have some good news for Lexus fans. Ollie Gavin's car has come back out from behind the wall. That's at least a couple of times that car's been behind the wall now, Shea. Was that the one that had the debris damage at the front of that car earlier on, or was that the 12? Because they were both behind the wall at one time, weren't they?
Yep, that was definitely the 12.
Right.
They've both been behind the wall a few times, and I've actually got my Lexus contacts getting us a report as soon as they can.
Yeah, not the start of the season that they would have wanted. You're watching and listening to IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. Thanks to our network colleagues for giving us a bit of time so that you can join us in the USA as well. Nice to have your company in this traditional night owl session. Going to have about an hour and 10 minutes of us before we hand you back. Rooftop Ray Wenzel Jr. right at the top of the grandstand where it says World Centre of Racing, up where the spotters are up there. It's a great view, but my, is it cold at this time of night. It gets windy up there as well. There will be many layers around Ray up there. Often tries to put up a little windbreak as well. Well, I think Nico's out of that car now. He's very many layers. Thank you, Ray. Nico is out of the car. The problem is I don't think they can get the car out of gear. And now they're trying to push it. There's damage to the left front suspension, tyre and wheel area. There's bodywork damage pretty much everywhere else as it clattered down the barriers, nose to tail, nose to tail, nose to tail. And that's not going to be a quick fix. They'll be disappointed with that. Nick Damon and Shea Adam are with me, John Hindhaugh.
Every single corner in Daytona. That's one place I haven't actually crashed. So you know, well done, Nico. There, he's been making a new accident. Definitely a 2x, probably even 4x on the whole situation. But very unlucky. And it is, you know, when you get a wheel off the track, especially. My guess is what's happened is that he's effectively been spooked by one of the other cars coming across. He's tried to avoid it while still applying power. I think just a bit on one side of the road. Don't forget, he's quite a bit in cold tyres as well, John. So the double whammy. And it just goes to show even the most experienced and probably the most successful LMP2 driver can make mistakes.
So the pits then have opened for prototypes. Kenton Cook was the first to come in the number 6, second in class at the moment. And Shea Adam, there's a bit, have we got fuel going into that car, or are they just putting in a new driver? This seems all a bit relaxed there. I suppose it's under yellow.
John, they're doing the brakes.
Oh, of course they are. Of course they are. So just a reminder, thank you, Nick, for that. The cars in LMP 3 are doing a brake change that is within a 8-minute category. That's an LMP 2 car, and therefore they've got to do it as fast as they can. Sorry, that is an LMP 3 car, so they're burning their 8 minutes right now for Milner Motorsports, and that is a very good way of getting it out of the way. However, in the top class, we've got a brake change too, Nick Damon, for one of the leading runners.
Konica Minolta Acura is taking the opportunity to change the brakes, or the disc brakes, or the rotors for our American viewers and listeners. This will be on what's called a dry brake system, which means you can actually just disconnect the entire caliper and reconnect it just like a as simple as an electrical socket, but you actually manage to maintain the pressure of the brake fluid.
They didn't have a replacement disc there for a moment. There was something not quite right. The other thing you'll notice is that there's nothing holding the brake disc on in terms, the brake rotor on, in terms of anything being bolted onto it. It fits on a spline around the hub or a locating peg, and then when the caliper goes back on and is bolted up, that is what holds it on once the wheel is tightened up to it. That's fairly standard operational practice.
Motorcycle technology, floating disc brake.
Floating disc brakes. We
not in carbon, obviously.
No, indeed. We designed that into the S7R Celine when I was working for Ray Malek back in 2000 when we took that programme up. Sheer interview time whilst we've got a full course yellow. Great time to speak to some of the drivers with this VP Racing Fuel pit and paddock update.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to speak to Kyle Tilley out of the Era Motorsports, number 18. He's currently in his motorhome just chilling and trying to recover as Ryan Dial is out on the track. And Kyle has one of the best liveries in motorsport and definitely in terms of the race today. Kyle, can you hear us?
Not quite. Well,
might not have him yet. We'll have to come back to that one.
Just a reminder, of course, that everybody working in different ways nowadays. So our production team up in London working hard to get the connectivity to the track and liaise with the PR people at the circuit to get the chats to the drivers. We'll see if we can get back to Kyle in a moment or two. It's Tim Gray who's in London, and Kyle is there now. Shay, take it away.
Hey, Kyle, thanks for joining us on IMSA Radio. I was talking a little bit about your livery that you're running on the 18 Era Motorsport car. Tell us about the background and tell us who's Owen and why should we know him?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Owen is a 6-year-old race fan from Canada. We started this livery competition, actually this event last year, and the intention was to run the livery in Road Atlanta for Petit Le Mans, and obviously with accent in Le Mans. So we wheeled out the livery this weekend, and the response to it has been crazy. I think it looks great on track. I was a little skeptical when I first saw it in the workshop, but no, I'm super excited, and we've been keeping in touch with Owen throughout the whole event. He's been sending us some videos and things, and we've been sending him videos, so it's been a lot of fun.
So it's basically like a Crayola drawing, correct? That all of a sudden you guys translated onto the race car.
Yeah, we thought about whether we just wanted to make it like a solid color, like where he'd put the color, but in the end we decided just to go with like the Crayola kind of drawing as he submitted his entry, so it was as accurate to that as possible. And of course the lightning bolts on the side, everybody knows they're worth half a second a lap.
Yeah, well, anytime you add Harry Potter to a car, it just brings that little bit of extra magic. For Era Motorsports, right, exactly. and you and Dwight, yeah, it's your second Rolex. So how has this race been different than a year ago?
You know, we got the car a couple of weeks before the race last year. We've got a year of driving it, and the boys have got a year of running it and engineering it. The car is super quick right now. We were unfortunate to have some electrical gremlins early on. We couldn't downshift for whatever reason, so we had to do the old Control-Alt-Delete. We lost some time with that, but yeah, we're looking okay. The car's fast. We just need a break with a caution. I'm hopeful that this one can get us a lap back.
Yeah, and that's hi, Carl. It's signed off here at the Haggerty Global Broadcast.
Hey, John.
How are you? Bearing up?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good. It's that never say die attitude that you've got to have in endurance racing, though, isn't it? You know, if this had been a 45-minute sprint or a couple of hours even, losing laps earlier on, it would have been, I'm sure it would have been pretty hard to motivate yourself. Quite clearly, you guys have not got an issue with that. You feel that you've got the pace in the car to challenge if you can get back on the lead lap?
Yeah, 100%. We absolutely have the pace in the car, and Paul, Lou, Ryan and myself have all been very, very close on lap time, and it's just us three to the end now. Dwight's got his minimum drive time done, So yeah, fingers crossed. But as you said, it's all part of endurance racing, isn't it?
And all part of the tactics as well to get that bronze driver time out of the way. Was that deliberate that you're going to get Dwight Merriman in his time, get his time in early, or did you change your thinking when we had the yellows early on?
No, it was always the plan. It played out really well, and the yellows early on helped us for sure, but it was always on the card.
What's the plans for the rest of the season, Carl?
Rest of the season from here, we go to Asia for Asian Le Mans Series, and we're also, I don't know if anybody knows this might be a breaking news, we're entered for the season with IMSA, so we'll be floating around.
Whoa, you've just lit up Twitter. So that's an exclusive here as you're talking to us. So you are going to be doing the full IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship?
That is the plan. My PR girl's probably going to hate that I've just said this, but that's okay.
Okay, I like that. Hi, Kelly Brulé, K-Brew. Just one final one from me. Asian Le Mans Series has been relocated to the United Arab Emirates with a couple of races in Dubai and a couple at Yas Marina. That's coming up fairly shortly. Is that still going to be able to go ahead from your point of view? I know that the team are going, the organising team is going out there fairly shortly to get their quarantine and such like. The logistics for that quite complicated?
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare, but we're okay so far.
Oh, I wish you the best in that, and great news that we're going to have you for the rest of the season. We'll let you get back and get some rest and keep an eye on getting those laps back. DL will get you. DL will tell everybody that he drove fast enough to get a lap back. You know that anyway, don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Kyle Tilley from the wonderful livery on that number 18 car, sitting fourth in category. Young fan that did the livery for that. Still under full course yellow. Class split is going on at the moment, so we'll be going back shortly. Amazing to think that a 6-year-old Shay, that little race fan Owen, has started a career. Andy Blackmore might have an apprentice, although in fairness, Andy's daughter Kira is pretty handy as well, and has already done her first livery. She did one of the Dragon racing cars, I think, a few years ago that went to Bathurst, I want to say.
She did a Dragon on JMW at Le Mans, I think it was.
That's right.
Yeah,
I knew there was a Dragon involved.
She's very good at doing Dragons. But I have to say, Owen, young Canadian, so making us proud from just outside of Toronto. So, you know, maybe there is something. Andy Blackmore lives in Canada too. Maybe that's where all the art is.
Going back to green, the flag is in the air, and immediately there's a jig out. There can't be a pass. Oh, now, was that a pass before the line there from at the front of the field? It's a pass that was trying to get a lap back, I think, from the Idemitsu Mazda. Jonathan Bomarito trying to get a lap back there as he's trying to fight his way back through, but that looked very close to going before the line. Shea Adam was watching that. You saw the last time that somebody got called for that, Shea. What did you reckon there?
Close. I want to see a replay. Yeah, it's going to be something that race control will look at, and I'm expecting to see the little words from the race control chat start under review.
A couple of light coloured cars that were going very well indeed at the front of the field, but maybe, just maybe, jumped a wee bit early. Mike Rockenfeller for Ally Cadillac Racing, excuse me, still scored as the leader. So in fact, was it that car that nipped out to the high side? I didn't think it had that much of the purple on it as it went underneath on the tri-oval, and they were slightly mixed up with some lap cars in there because the Mazda clearly stayed out to get its lap back, so that's what they were trying to do. And 55, yes, it is the 55. I was right the first time. Is at the head of that group and pulling away, just going across the line now. It's been followed by Mike Rockefeller. The taillights of the Mazda just disappearing into turn 1 as the Ally Cadillac makes the transition down. And Shea Adam with a penalty, but not from the restart.
Nope, but this is still a big penalty. It's a stop plus 60 seconds for the number 6 Mjolnir Motorsports Duquesne in the LMP3 category.
It's third place in class.
Working on a car in a closed pit.
Oops.
That's a big oopsie.
But Shea, that is basic stuff. That is not a rule that is, you know, hidden away anywhere. And the way around that is, okay, bring your car in because you need to work on it and either do emergency service and get it back out again, or just let it sit there and wait for the pits to open. A minute or so, probably less than a minute away, they only got a 60-second penalty, and then start working on it there.
But even then, you're entering a closed pit, so just wait until the pit's open for the prototypes and then come in and do all of your work that you have associated with it. There's no need to incur this kind of penalty. But I do have some insight as far as that team is concerned. And by the way, Lawrence Hoare back behind the wheel of that car. He is the... Oh no, sorry, all of the drivers in that car still need to meet minimum drive time. But that car has been struggling more in the colder conditions, so the team is waiting, sort of rocking on their heels almost until they get to the point where the sun comes up again and things start to heat up, because they are very fast in the sunshine, not as fast under the moonlight.
The Whelen car eased off at turn 1 in that kerfuffle on the restart and lost a good 4 or 5 places, I reckon, there in the queue, but still scored in second position.
Another interesting penalty just came through. This time for the 14 Lexus, working on the car in an unapproved area drive-through. I wonder where they stopped, if they just stopped in the middle of the throughway.
Yeah. Just pulled over. Just pulled over, you know.
Just go around, it's fine.
So just after 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 minutes past 5, we're a couple of hours before official sunrise in this part of the United States of America. And the start, well, the Mazda was rapid. J-Bomb did get round over the top. They're down into turn 1, the Whelen Cadillac goes out wide and just goes over the white line and then onto the grass. Was there a bit of hip and shoulder there? Might have been, but 1, 2, 3, 4 cars whipped by. Amazingly, that car still scored in second because, as I said, there were some lapped cars mixed in. And I've not seen that start being looked at yet. It may even have been, was that the, I think that was the Mazda that was ushering it off. It surely wasn't its team car, Shea Adam, was it?
That's the car that's right in front of it on the racetrack right now.
No. If it was the car that's right in front of it on the racetrack, then it lost more ground than that. Nick Damon, how did you see that restart and the subsequent grassy excursion for Felipe Nasr?
Well, John Bonarito had a run into turn 1, wasn't prepared to give the lap back he'd been fighting so hard to gain, and just took his line. And we go around turn 1 at maximum speed, there isn't room for 2 DPIs on their line. So other DPI, Nasr went wide and picked up the grass, lost drive. And of course, the worst time to do it is a restart because all your rivals are queuing right behind you, or other cars are. So, yeah, I mean, just you look at just come up. But I very much doubt there's no indication of any impact there. The car isn't doing anything, but it's a case of get out of the way because I'm not giving you any space. So a little bit naughty because he was being lapped.
Well, he was trying to get a lap back. I think that's the
Well,
thing.
he had the lap back as he went down the main straight, but he was out dragged into the first corner, and therefore at that point he was being lapped. And it's a very grey area with, obviously the rules within, in America are slightly different from the more black and white, where you don't have the wave around. If you're on a lapped car, you get a blue flag and you move out of the way. But obviously he was tapped, so you don't move out of the way within himself.
Yeah, trying to hold on to the real estate that you've picked up. It is Mike Rockefeller, by the way, out of all of that still leads in the Ali Cadillac racing car by 0.6 of a second from Philippe Nasser. So the two cars going through the international horseshoe now and onto the kink, the left-handed little notch in the infield. That's first and second. And there are cars around them that are laps down. Juan Montoya is another 2.6 seconds further back, and then Scott Dixon in the 0-1 Cadillac is just half a second behind Montoya. Oh, hello, Montoya, Dixon and Ricky Taylor all within about 1.5 seconds of each other, battling for position. Yes, we'll take that at this time in the morning. That's fairly tasty, isn't it? By the time the sun rises at 7:13 this morning, we'll have had from sunset 13 hours and 11 minutes of darkness. Just by way of comparison, we were talking at Le Mans, which was held in September in 2020, rather than usual June, about how unusual it was to have so much darkness at Le Mans, and we had just over 11 hours there. So this is more than half the race, substantially more than half the race running between sunset and sunrise. And with the slightly later start time this year, as we went green flag at 3:40, then it was a relatively short run into the darkness. It made for a very long day for the teams and drivers. And as we were talking about Shea Adam in our Michelin Countdown to Green, one or two of the team managers and particularly the PR staff, most of whom, as we've said, aren't with their chargers, or aren't with the drivers. It made for some very bored drivers, and bored drivers are dangerous things, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think we know that Kelly Brulé is currently on her way to beat up Kyle Tilley for telling us that. But yes, it's a very dangerous thing. We've got 10.5 hours remaining in this race. Normally at this point in time, well, last year at this point in time, we had 8.5 hours to go. That 2-hour time difference does make a big difference. Because we then get drivers who are sitting around for 2 more hours before the race day begins. And this year, no autograph session meant that we had drivers who were especially without something to do. A little bit of a note on Corvette Racing, by the way, they split their strategy for the first time the last time around. The 4 car, which is the silver one with the yellow accents, has been getting slightly better fuel mileage throughout the course of this race. They've been able to go about a lap or two further than the 3 car had been on their pit sequences, or at least the 3 had been pitting a lap or two before the 4 had. They split the strategy in order to try and even things up. So the 3 came in and pitted under the caution, whereas the 4 stayed out. And now we're going to get an opportunity to see BMW mixing it up with the Corvettes, because the BMW of Philip Eng has fresh tires as well.
Yeah, and immediately starts to give a bit of grief to the number 3 Corvette. Those two battling for position. Alexander Sims is only 3/4 of a second further up the road. Just a reminder, by the way, that on Monday afternoon Eastern time, when you're just beginning to realise that you're coming down from the race, the good news is we'll be taking you through all of the action and discussing it with the people who made the headlines in our online Haggerty Inside Track, 1 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock in the UK, via the live pages on haggerty.com. Join me and a selection of guests. Now, we've got a few people lined up, all very interesting, with a few options depending on what the result is in 10.5 hours time. So that's 1 o'clock on the live pages of Haggerty.com. And if you tune in live, you'll be able to ask questions as well. So you drive that as well. Looking forward to that. We've had a lot of fun and a lot of good information out of that as well. Somehow it seems that people relax after a 24-hour race. We managed to get Brendan Hartley in the first one of those after Le Mans in September last year, giving us details of the Toyota Hybrids hypercar program, didn't we, Nick?
If you get them after just done a 24-hour race, they've not slept, their defences are down, they're not totally PR. You can get in there with the question they're not supposed to answer. They go, oh, I'm tired.
It's the Colombo question at the end when they think they've got through. And Brendan had just actually got back home. He hadn't even spoken to his significant other. And we got right to the end of the interview, and I just did that Colombo with the last question and threw it in. And he was so tired that he couldn't remember whether he did answer it, he couldn't answer it, or he should answer it. And in the end, we did get an answer from him. In fairness, I don't want to make trouble for Brendan with Alistair Moffat, who is the excellent PR at Toyota Gazoo Racing for the WEC. I don't think it was top secret news, but it was news to us, is what we should say. Hello to Ollie. Good morning from a cold and sun shining in Germany. Ben Keating's done the most driving after 13 hours, SRA says. They're both tweeting in using the hashtag R24 radio, R24 radio to @IMSA-radio. And Ben, that's over 7 hours and 25 minutes already, but he's splitting that between two cars, Shane, and he's got to get his drive timing in both, without, of course, going over the maximum. And you can only do a certain amount of time in any period, and that's total. That's not in one car, isn't it?
No more than 4 hours in any 6-hour period, and that is cumulative. So that goes between, if you get out of one car and straight into another, your drive time continues to go up, let's say. Unfortunately for Ben, the car in which he's completed the most amount of drive time is the 52 PR1 Matheson Motorsports Orica, which is currently behind the wall after that crash for Nick Lapierre leaving the pit lane. Very, very strange. But Ben is waiting to get back into the 97 TF Sport Aston Martin that Charlie Eastwood is currently piloting. In that car, if I flip to my handy page that I've got going, Keating is the only driver who needs to hit the minimum drive time left in that car as far as the amateur ranks are concerned. You mentioned Ollie a few moments ago. You weren't talking about OG, but Ollie Gavin's car, I do have an update on that. The 14 Lexus went behind the wall. We saw that quite some time ago. The team saw something in the data that they didn't like, so they brought the car back to the garage for a systems check. And if I scroll down on timing and scoring, it is still back in the garage, so that does not bode well for the Lexus team, who hasn't exactly had the easiest of Daytonas so far this year.
Thank you, Shay, for that VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock update. The battle continues at the front of the field, and despite the intervention of traffic, Mike Rockefeller has not been able to get away, or you could say Felipe Nasser has not been able to get past. Juan Montoya now within 3 seconds of those two, with half a second behind him, Scott Dixon. So the top four still only separated by 2.6 seconds. And Ricky Taylor's not that far back either. He's only another 3.5. Sound of the Cadillac motor up on the high banking. And heading towards the braking area for the bus stop on the far side of the circuit, the other side of Lake Lloyd. The leaders very close together as they sit in traffic. Too far ahead, that was the Ricci Competizione Ferrari, I think they were going quite not too far ahead, that Mazda. Jonathan Bomarito got one of his laps back. The other car, by the way, that was in there on the restart, I think was the number 5 Mustang Sampling, the dark grey car that's lapsed down after its problems earlier on, but there's nothing between the leaders as they're behind the pits again into another clutch of traffic. Our listeners collective from Radio Show Limited came up with the term clumping of race cars, and this has now become recognised as a scientific phenomenon. It actually doesn't matter how many or how few cars you have and how long or how short the circuit is. Ultimately, you will find cars of very different paces. They will end up in the same place at the same time, and the leaders will have to fight their way through them. Definition, Nick Damon, of clumping.
Yeah, the weird thing is the only other place I've seen the word clumping used is in relation to cat litter.
I don't want to know.
Clumping and non-clumping.
No, leave it. Even at this time in the morning, the answer is no on that one. We have eclectic chats.
The English words mean 2 things, or 3 things.
Yes, eclectic is one thing, but that's just, I'm afraid that's icky. Sorry. Even at this time of the day, Rockenfeller doing a great job. Isn't it good, Shea, to see Mike Rockenfeller back in a prototype? It was very nice to hear the compliments and the respect that Philippe Albuquerque was paying him. Knows him very well, as we heard in that interview earlier on, from way back down the years and the Audi years as well. But Rocky's clearly lost absolutely none of his drive, his desire, and importantly, of course, none of his pace either in that number 48 Ally Cadillac.
Yeah, Mike Rockenfeller, a guy that we've long associated with prototype racing. And it's so good when they announced this all-star studded lineup. Everyone knows Jimmy Johnson. Everyone in America knows who Jimmy Johnson is. Everyone in America, well, most of the people in America know who Simon Pagenaud is after he won the Indy 500 a couple of years ago now, and people fell in love with the fact that he brings his dog everywhere with him too. Most people are aware of Kamui Kobayashi, at least people who pay attention to Daytona, over the last 2 years, because his ability to pick up the Cadillac, carry it on his back across the start-finish line, and push people out of the way in the meantime, it's simply stunning to sit back and watch. And then you've got Mike Rockenfeller, who is well known in Europe, not as well known over in America, but he's got all the big endurance race wins. And he is somebody that sports car enthusiasts, they smile when they see his name on an entry list. So to have Mike as a part of that group, and to know that that's the group that was handpicked to drive this car, oh man, it's a good feeling to have him back on our rotation.
And into the pit lane at the end of his stint, and that means that there's no VP fuel left in the car, and that, with a little bit of yellow, was a 24 lap stint. And Nick Damon is watching this one. I don't think Rocky's getting out, Nick.
No, he's stuck in that car now. It's tyres, it's fuel. I had a little bit of interesting...
2 tyres only, though, just the insides.
Yeah, a little note from me and James actually a few minutes ago, just talking about that we're going to start seeing a flurry of GTD brake changes coming up, he said, but remember that GT3 are not allowed to drive brake systems, so they can only do the pads and the rotor. You know, we'll see the big spreaders come out, but he's expecting that to start happening probably with the next full court caution if one comes in the next hour or 2.
Yeah, again, 2 tyres, just as we heard the tactic from Philippe Albuquerque. So they're double stinting opposite sides of the cars at the pit stops in the cooler temperatures, and that's. I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have thought that there were so few tyres that they needed to do that. But in our Porsche Keys to the Race, we talk about what you've got left when you reach high noon, midday, today, Sunday, 3 hours and 40 minutes left. And I'm guessing, Shea, Adam, what they want to do is have as many sets of stickers left in the relative heat of the day as we move into the afternoon to be able to get them to the end if they need them. If, for example, there's a late race caution, leave them out in the sun, get them on there and give your driver something to fight with.
For sure, because ultimately nothing else in this race matters besides the last lap, and you want to have your car in the best possible position for that last lap. So if that means throwing new tires at the car at the period of time where you need the car to be the best, i.e. from the time when the sun comes up, you want to have as many sets of fresh tires available as you do. Now, the interesting thing about all of these DPI cars doing the one side of the car tire change only, they don't exactly get to choose what tires they get from Michelin. So they get 38 sets of tires. That doesn't mean that they can request 42 sets of left side tires, or 76 sets of left side tires only. They have to take the full sets. So they're doing left side tires only now. Does that mean they're going to leave the lefts on at some point and then put fresh right side tires on?
And the other thing is that other than the GT Le Mans cars, it is a spec tyre across the class. There are compound choices for GT Le Mans, but not for DPI or any of the other prototype classes. And indeed, there's been a change this year in the GTD tyre compound. In fact, I think all of the compounds have gone a little harder, and that might actually be one of the reasons why the Dallara is going so well in LMP2, because it's working well with that slightly harder tyre.
Yeah, and specifically as far as GTD is concerned, last year we ran 4 races on the S8. Every other GTD race was on the S9, so that was 7 races on the S9. It did lead to a little bit of confusion and a little bit of discrepancy between the performance in the GTD cars, and particularly the BOP results, because when you're bouncing back and forth between different tires, it does make it harder, as well as doing the different tracks. Last year at the Daytona 24 Hours, they ran on the S8, which was the softer compound. But then when we came back for the race in July, we ran on the S9. Now, we were supposed to run on the S9, I should say. That was a rain race, so that did affect things. They did eventually get to put on slicks, but it took a little bit longer of asking. But if you look at the performance of the various manufacturers over the course of their different tire life cycles in effect, everyone seemed to be happier across the board on the S9, and so Michelin has brought that tire for 2021.
Lovely. Top 3 together. Shea Adam with that VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock update on the Michelin tyre situation. Top 3 now within a second and a half. Top 4 within 4 seconds, with Ricky Taylor just trying to close down. He's a couple of seconds away from the back of the top 3. 31, red, white wheel and Cadillac. Then Montoya in the Meyershank with Curb Agajanian Acura. That's the purple and black car, the number 60, and then Scott Dixon. They are absolutely carving their way through the field, about to go past Alexander Sims, who's the leading GT Le Mans car for Corvette Racing, and Scott Dixon just got in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught him up in the wrong place at the wrong time in the early part of the infield. But just to give you an idea, the leader is coming out of the Western Horseshoe as second and third are in the middle of it. It's not even them going into it. They're all on the short tube between 5 and 6 as they go up onto the banking. What have they got ahead of them? Well, still, actually, Jonathan Bomarito's probably doing them all a favour, because he's got a lap back after the restart and cleared off just a wee bit from this, and therefore they've got a prototype, almost like a snowplow going ahead of them, or a motorcycle outrider, and waking up the back markers as they come to them. The next car that they will have to put a lap on in their own battle is Owen Trinkler in the Team GGM Porsche. Ted Giovannis doing this race for the first time with his team. Regular competitors in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, and indeed a championship winning team from a couple of 3 seasons ago. Owen, highly experienced, I think has the most starts in Michelin Pilot Challenge. Man that hails from just outside of Nashville. Owen in the car at the moment. That Porsche not quite where they wanted at the moment, but Ted told us a few weeks ago what he wanted to do was get to the end. It was good to hear his tones on our broadcast earlier on as well. So those top three, Nick Damon, the concentration levels now, going from following the safety car at what would feel sub-walking pace in these thoroughbred cars to being switched on for that restart, and then within a couple or 3 laps, just as your Michelin's are getting nice and warm and you're thinking, yeah, I'll crack up some fast laps now, here comes the back of the traffic. Oh, and by the way, you're racing for first, second and third at the same time. Parallel processing? I think so.
Yeah, I think the thing is, though, I think that the fact that you're constantly thinking about how to negotiate the traffic actually really, really helps your concentration. And these professional drivers are obviously at the top of the game anyway, but there are elements where you can disappear into a darkened piece of straight in the backwoods of Spa and kind of just drift off a bit at some points, a total concentration. But here, because not only are you after a couple of laps of a restart attacking cars, you're also having to think, where how do I actually pace myself to get past this car in the most effective possible way? Do I just ease back on this car and go faster? And then again, you've got to look in your mirrors and see the car behind you. But I don't think at this point in the race the cars following are desperate to get past. If the leading car
chance,
makes a mistake, we'll do it. But they're not going to start nudging back and showing their nose and everything else, because they also know it's all about cleanliness through traffic, and they also know that getting 10 seconds ahead now isn't going to matter come to 2:30 for the last hour of the race.
Well, probably won't unless we go green the whole time. Cleanliness, to misquote the well-known phrase or saying, cleanliness in motor racing terms is close to speediness. What about the front of the GT Daytona field then? These GT cars running to the International GT3 specifications, but with the balance of performance influenced by IMSA's technical department, for the unique nature of American racing. First and second now, under a second between them, with Indy Donchi for Winwood Racing in the Mercedes-AMG GT3, and Nicholas Nielsen for AF Corsa, the number 21 Ferrari. They're together on the high banks, very, very close indeed, and this has been a very good run, Shea Adam, from the Winwood 57 car, but I fear that there's an inevitable pass coming. There's just a sense that Ferrari is picking up a really big toll. Now they've got traffic as well, as the Turner car is ahead of them. They haven't had the clean run that they were hoping for. And they are side by side with the BMW. And what a battle that is. Let's just watch this play out before we take another guest here. Absolutely side by side for the lead in category, fighting through to go up onto the high banks. Now onto the Speedway turn 1 and 2 again, and that has actually split them up a little bit, which is perfect timing for us to welcome Frank Weisman, the manager of product communications of Porsche Cars North America. Frank, thank you for joining us in what I know is a very busy weekend, but keep our eyes on that GTD battle. My goodness, what a race we've had so far. Frank, have you had time to watch some of this, or have you been too busy?
No, absolutely, John. Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. No, it's been an incredibly, for us, I guess, nail-biting race so far. Obviously, we had the unfortunate incident with Kevin right at the start, and then some contact with several of the GTD cars throughout the field. But as you guys were saying earlier, the race is still long. We still got just about 10 hours to go. So from here on out, it's just keeping concentrated, keeping motivated, and fortunately, all the cars are still running. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll stay optimistic.
We miss the works cars, and I know you guys do as well. A bit of a bonus to get the WeatherTech entry into GT Le Mans with Cooper McNeil and his organisation putting that together. Did that take a bit of organisation to get the vehicle to them? Because it seemed that it was quite a late decision when I spoke to Cooper, a couple of 3 weeks ago.
Yes, absolutely. So that took some work, but it's obviously something we wanted to support, and like you said, a nice surprise after we had the goodbye tour, you could call it, last year. Wasn't necessarily something we expected at that point in time, but getting that call and putting that together was certainly something we were excited about. And again, unfortunate that they had that bad luck early at the start, but they're running well now.
Oh, and we lost him. That was Frank Wiseman, Manager Product Communications for Porsche Cars North America. We'll try and get him back, and whilst we do that, I'll remind you that if you're watching and listening to us in the US, our TV colleagues will be taking back over again to take it to the end of the race in about 25 minutes, and that will be Dave Burns with Calvin Fish and Marty Snyder on the pit lane. That's in about 25 minutes time. And Dave, excuse me, Frank, are you back with us there? Sorry about that. We are pushing the technology, of course, in these unusual times.
I'm still here. Yeah, well, it's technical difficulties, but
yeah, don't worry.
Sign of the time.
We're all having to learn to work in different ways, whether it's covering races or doing our work in our 9-to-5 jobs. Listen, a couple of quick questions so that we can get back to the action. A couple of big announcements that Porsche have been involved with, and it goes right to the very heart of Porsche Motorsport across the year, which is customer facing racing. First of all, LMDH, that's a little while old now, the new version of the DP cars. Porsche in Germany from Weissach saying, yes please, we'd like some of that, and speaking specifically about coming to IMSA. That's very, very exciting for everybody on this side of the Atlantic.
Yes, absolutely. Certainly something we've been thinking about for a while, and it's something we absolutely can't wait to get back into. Of course, the other big news is the Porsche Carrera Cup North America, which we're hosting for the first time this year in the United States, a series that has a 30-year history with the one-make racing throughout the world that goes on with the GT3 Cup cars. But yes, LMDH, we can't wait till 2023 to be in that top class and race for the overall win again. And yeah, something that we were very excited to announce at the end of the year. So on both ends of the spectrum, we have great action, great racing coming up, and looking forward to see how Carrera Cup unfolds this season. We have the first race in March, and 8 races in total throughout the year in the US. And then 2 years down the road, the big class LMDH, where we're very excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, full live coverage of that on IMSA.tv here in the US and further afield. The particular part of Carrera Cup North America that I think is very exciting is for the young career drivers. There'll always be a nice mix, I'm sure, of drivers, and you recognise that with the different categories. But for the young career drivers, effectively for the first time, you're giving them a Porsche Academy in the US with some off-track training as well. And now that the championship is on Michelin tyres, you can send people to the shootout in Europe, and they won't have the disadvantage that they've had in the past. They will be able to compete for those young driver spots.
That's correct. The shootout ticket is something that they'll directly have access to now, and that's something that wasn't the case before. So it really gives us a better opportunity to place young talent directly in that global pool to hopefully advance further up in the Porsche racing ladder. So again, something that's new to this year, new for us, and we're looking forward to see how that develops.
One quick final question, and we'll get back to the GTD battle, which is just heating up again. The guys have been kind enough not to swap positions. Indy Doncic still ahead of Nicholas Nielsen, the AMG ahead of the Ferrari. GT Daytona Pro for next year comes in to be the top class. Now, all right, that's not necessarily customer racing, but does that make things more interesting for Porsche Motorsport in the United States? Can you guys envisage an opportunity for you guys to get back into some works or semi-works racing with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at the field right now, you're already seeing a bit of that mosaic of mixing between customer teams, but also a lot of factory drivers, not just at Porsche. So I do think it's something very worth looking at and worth considering to continue to have that factory influence and involvement, along with the customer passion that's defined racing in the U.S., certainly for Porsche, for pretty much as long as Porsche has been around. So yes, another very exciting development. Just shows you that racing is always evolving, and certainly not getting less interesting this year and in the years to come.
Frank, thanks for joining us. Get back, watch a bit more racing, and we'll speak to you across the season. There's going to be some fantastic Porsche action, I know that. Cheers, man.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
So we are coming to the end of another race hour. So let's take a Mazda in race update. Thanks to Frank Weisman, manager product communications of Porsche. The battle in GT Daytona continues. Nothing has changed in the course of that interview. Kept our eyes on it. Winward still ahead of AF Corsa, and in third place Lucas Stoltz, now just 15.5 seconds behind the battling pair at the front of the field. So frustrating, I'm sure, for Nicholas Nielsen in that Ferrari. Every time he gets somewhere close, there's a car gets in between them, and all of a sudden he drops back just a little bit. Got the Turner BMW in there as well. At the other end of the field, Mike Conway's taken over the Whelen Engineering Cadillac number 31, and he leads by 4.5 seconds. Scott Dixon has got Ricky Taylor in his wheel tracks. About a second between the number 01 Cadillac from Chip Ganassi and the Wayne Taylor Racing number 10. And then another 9/10 further back is the 48. That's Mike Rockenfeller. So second, third and fourth absolutely together, with fifth place AJ Allmendinger taking his break from the NBC broadcast booth. He's only 1.2 seconds, check that, he's now only 0.6 of a second further back as this battle for what is going to be very quickly second, third, fourth and fifth is raging at the front of the field. So let's run down the other categories quickly. LMP2, Tower Motorsport by 13 seconds from Chetila Racing, 8 Orica from 47 Dallara. Third place now is, it's going to be now, I think Fabian Schiller is probably got out, still in third place. Aero Motorsport just a wee bit too far back, and they're trying to make up a lap. Alexander Sims and Nicky Katzberg in the 4 and 3 Corvettes lead Philip Eng by about 4 seconds. The first of the BMWs, the 25, the red car, and then it's Alessandro Perchini, another red car, but that's a Ferrari for racing. And in LMP3, Spencer Piggott for Riley Motorsports in the Ligier number 74 leads Jan Claret for Sean Creech Motorsport. In second now, that 33 car, because of the problems for Milner Motorsport in the Duquesne. In third position, that's your Mazda in race update. Shea Adam will give us a little more news on the on AJ Allmendinger, who currently sits in fifth position but is closing and has now caught Mike Rockenfeller.
Well, and you said he's taking a break from the TV booth, also taking a break from his pet dad duties very clearly. But AJ is the only driver in that car who had not hit the 2-hour drive time mark, which is the minimum drive time for the prototype class. So he, yes, was taking a break, but he also needed to complete his job here before Mike Shank could say, yeah, AJ, you're released to go do whatever you want for the rest of this one. Just make sure you're back later for some champagne.
Shea Adam with that VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock update. Nick, we're coming to the end of our time together. What really sticks in my mind over these last few hours is just how close everything has stayed in all of the classes. And now Rockefeller is right with the Ricky Taylor car, is right with Ricky Taylor, yeah, as they go side by side on the banking, up and over the top. Across the line, it's still Conway leading from Scott Dixon in second. Actually, that was a lapped car, I think, that he was going over there. But
we've actually got another hour together.
Oh yes, we have. Yes,
I'm pulling the midnight hour, the early morning graveyard shift. You got the young attractive team with you, with myself and Shay, you see, helping you out here.
Well, you need something to balance my undoubted face for radio, so that's fine. That's fine. What have you taken out the last 3 hours or so?
I think I get the impression there's several teams now who quite like to get another full course yellow, so that they can effectively make the most of it and do those little changes they want to do with the brakes or whatever under the yellow flag situation. I think there's a bit of hanging on going on with some of the teams, certainly the GTZ field. So expect, if someone does make a horrible mistake in the next 45 minutes, everyone to pile in. The rest of it, I think, it's remarkable how these DPIs keep going around with a very minor ebb and flow between them. But it's fascinating to watch, and it's going to get even better once the sun comes up and changes the entire setup for all the cars.
And are you able to make any major predictions, Nick?
I personally, do fancy the Cadillacs over the Acuras. It's a 3-2 battle now. I just feel that it seems to me the Cadillacs have been faster at the start of the race as well, a little bit, and then it's this middle period where the Acuras are back on again. I'm just thinking when the temperature gets back up again, I'm just thinking it might play back into the Caddies again.
The guys at Mazda were thinking that they would do all right if it warmed up, but they've got to get those laps back first of all. Mike Rockefeller, by the way, will be the first of the top group into the pits in that Allied Cadillac, but he's got about another 7 or 8 laps still to go. And that will take him out of that battle for a wee while, at least. 37 at the front of the field for Conway, 1:35.9 for Scott Dixon. So that's come down again, just about a second. That's the traffic. Remember, in endurance racing, traffic giveth, traffic taketh away. There will be the ultimate balancing of the endurance universe, almost always. Just a quick look at some action earlier on, side by side. Was there a touch between the Mazda and the number 60? I think there might have been going through turn number 6. And Nick Damon has another VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock interview.
With Kenton Cook. Kenton, how are you doing? The end of your stint got very interesting because the team pulled the car in for its brake change but got it wrong in the rules.
Yeah. So I don't fully understand exactly what happened. I believe the rule goes that if you complete a pass around, you're not allowed to pit on the lap you complete the pass around. And I think that's where we made the mistake. We were planning to do the 8-minute mandatory stop at that time to do the brake change, but turns out it was invalid. Unfortunately, so we're going to have to do that again later on in the race. which is unfortunate. So, yeah, we stopped for longer than we needed to.
So that penalty has invalidated the 8-minute stop, and you still need another 8-minute stop, Kenton?
Correct. Yeah. So we'll need to do that again.
Wow.
Yeah. So hopefully we can find an opportune time again to take that. Maybe I don't know during another caution, hopefully, to mitigate the loss that's going to occur from that. But I mean, at least we'll have some more time to look at it. But it's highly unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate that that happened, because 8 minutes is going to be a few laps.
Yeah, I mean, we're in ways of being the unknown now, into the 14th hour with an LMP3 car. I mean, you got out a while ago. How was the car? Was it feeling robust and solid, or was it beginning to feel a little bit tired?
Yeah, I would say it was starting to feel a little tired, in the sense that the car was touching a little bit down, touching on the banking a bit more. For me, for some reason, I'm not sure if there was some damage on the plank or not. But other than that, the car actually had a decent balance. The car actually feels okay. But yeah, it was just touching on the banking a little bit more than it had. And from the contact earlier, the steering wheel was a little bit off. I think that's really not helped our situation currently. But Lawrence is in the car right now, and he's doing a good job. So we'll just need to keep pounding around, and hopefully others have. Hopefully the luck starts turning into our favor. Obviously, we don't wish anyone harm, but hopefully we can get our laps back.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'll ask you, because I think we've seen it a lot. I mean, the P3 seem to be getting a difficult car to get past. A lot of the traffic involves a P3. I'm not saying that the P3s are any fault in this. Is it a difficult car to negotiate around the traffic with the various, with the same speed as the GTLMs and the differences of the other prototypes? Of course, your lack of basic straight line speed.
Yeah, the GTD cars are, I guess, less of a problem really. The GTLM cars were somewhat similar, but honestly, they've got some pace over us for sure. They've turned it up since the roar, it seems, and yeah, we don't have anything for those cars. And depending on if you come out of the pits, you can certainly be in the way of GTD cars, but once you get tired, that's not really a problem. But I can definitely understand how if there's an AM in the car, the pace can be close to that of a GTD car, but which would make things interesting. And I think everyone kind of knew that coming in, for it to be an interesting ebb and flow of how things are going to go. But I guess it just adds another twist to the race. Fortunately, though, at least the yellows that have been caused haven't really been induced by LMP3 cars. So I guess if that's one thing to say, that's kind of a positive note.
Kenton, thank you so much for hanging on to talk to us. I know you need to get a bit of rest, and I really hope that the remaining 10 hours are a little bit luckier for the Muller Motorsport team in the first 14. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, mate. We'll keep pounding.
Ken Cook from the number 6 Muller Motorsport prototype. As we head into our last few minutes with you in sound and vision if you're in the USA. Shea Adam, let's do a little roundup of what's been happening. The battle at the front of the field is still raging on. We've got some GTLM pit stops to talk about, but let's start with the penalty count.
Well, we've got two that have come in. The first one is the most recent one, car number 96, which is Bill Oberlin. Incident responsibility with the 63, which is currently being driven by Marcus Gomez. He does need to meet his minimum time as a silver in the car. Drive-through for Bill Oberlin. It's a rare day when Bill gets a penalty. It's a rare day as well when Brian Sellers spins on track, which didn't sit well with me. So a little bit of investigating, and it turns out that there was some contact between him and Klaus Bachler about 40 minutes ago now at this point, I would say, between those two cars, the one and the 16. It has been looked at by race control with the help of TV. So thank you everyone for cooperating with that. And it is nice that race control is still up there, still watching, still paying attention. Still remember to read the rule book, people. And it was a drive-through penalty assessed to Klaus Bachler just now, putting Sellers in the Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini #1 back into the 4th position. We did have those GTLM pit stops that you mentioned. Outlaps right now for Alexander Sims in the #4 Corvette as he stayed aboard that silver machine. Connor DiFilippi in the 25 BMW, that's the red one, and James Pilato in the 62 Risi Competizione Ferrari. We are waiting a pit stop from our GTLM leader right now. That's Nick Katzberg in the yellow Corvette #3.
Yeah, and that's the time that the Corvette swap over when they do their pit stops. They have been very, very consistent on their fuel usage in those stops. 35 for Corvette, 30 for the BMWs. So Nicky's probably got 3 or 4 laps still to go in that car before he needs to come in. And by the way, Kevin Estre has just rejoined the circuit in the other GT Le Mans car, which we haven't talked about for a wee while, because that was the car that got nailed at the start and then had all of that rear diffuser, the underfloor problem early on. That's the 79 Porsche 911 GT3 RSR 19, to give it its full title. The WeatherTech car is the easier way of saying that. So Mike Conway by 3/10 of a second. What does 3/10 of a second look like? 4 or 5 car lengths on the banking, if that. Conway in the red and white #31 for Whelen Engineering. And in second place, Scott Dixon for Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing. They're on the tri-oval now, and Taylor's only another 6/10. Top 3 within a second. How'd you like those onions, as they say? We are leaving this race in a very, very spectacularly good way for our colleagues at TV when they rejoin us in a moment or two's time. Mike Rockenfeller is only another 6/10 further behind, so let's make the top 4 in a second and a half. Are we going to see a change in that lead? This could all go spectacularly wrong unless they play very, very nicely. On the infield again, through turn 6 and one of the high banks. Which of the Cadillacs has the best drive? It would appear in the early part of the banking to be Mike Conway, but in the draft behind, here comes Scott Dixon. Dixon's got the run. Which way does he go? He goes to the high side. That's going to be a tough call if he's going to get that one. Bails out of that early, but did he force Mike Conway into a slightly tighter line? He may have just done that, but can't capitalise coming out of the bus stop. If you're in the USA and you've been watching and listening to us here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV, thank you very much for spending your wee small hours with us. Stay with our NBC colleagues as they'll take you through to the end of the race. Coming up, it's Marty Schneider in the pits and Calvin Fish in the booth with Dave Burns. Thanks a lot for being with us. Enjoy the rest of the race. So for those of you who are still with us around the rest of the world, our coverage continues with Nick Damon and Shea Adam. I'm John Hindhaugh in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. And great thanks to all of our TV colleagues, particularly Rooftop Ray, who's been up in the cold for a very long time indeed. Not sure when Ray comes down from that. Battle for the lead still on. Scott Dixon in the same place. This time he gets to the inside, but tries and fails to outbrake Mike Conway. So where is Scott Dixon going to find the pace to get around the car in front? We said this all the way through the race. I've said this all the way through the race, Nick, that we have got Cadillacs that have different performance levels and different parts of the circuit and different times throughout their run. Cadillac number 31 engine that I'm listening to doesn't sound as clean as it did earlier. Could that be a broken exhaust manifold? Say again?
It can be a broken onboard microphone as well.
Well, it could be, yes, it could be. I'll have a listen to that. We'll just take the effects down a wee bit because we've got another VP Racing Field pit and paddock report.
Jonathan Morito, quite a fresh out of Mazda. Jonathan, it's a bit of a struggle so far with 55 cars.
Yeah, we've had a couple little issues. Hasn't been the smoothest race for us. We've kind of been in a good rhythm the last 8 spins or so through the night, but we had a tail, the pins that hold the tail on in the gearbox kind of sheared off, so we had lost a lot of rear downforce. We went to change the tail, and the boys couldn't get the new tail on because the pins broke off in the back of the gearbox, basically. So long pit stop. We're down, kind of keeps fluctuating 2 or 3 laps. Hasn't been nearly as many yellows as we need through the night. So we need a couple more yellows at key times and put us back on the lead lap.
Yeah, I was thinking that you're looking for yellows, but are you now pleased with the basic ground speed of the car? Do you think if you got the car back on the lead lap, you could compete with the Acuras and the Cadillacs in this situation?
Yeah, I think from what we saw during my stint and at the end there, once we were kind of at the front, we could stay there. We might have just enough pace. It's tough. It's definitely a fight out there right now. The pace is pretty quick. I think we do have a car to race for it, but you're not going to get it all back on pace the laps back. So you really are banking on yellows at this point. Team's doing a good job. I'm looking at the TV feed right now, 9.5 hours to go. So a long time still.
Big difference, of course, for you guys this season is you're just a single car entry. How has that affected your approach, and do you think it's negatively affected the competitiveness of the car at this race?
I don't think it's negatively affected it. Essentially you just have one chance at it instead of 2. If we had 2 cars out there, maybe the other one wouldn't have had the rear wing issue and it's running up on the lap right now. You just never know. I think from a preparation standpoint, I think the one car makes it a little bit easier. But but then you lose again on the amount of setup stuff in the practice session. So, it's give and take, but we're making the most of it. It's what we're forced into at the moment, and we just have to make it work.
We're looking at some quite The car looks very pretty. Just gone for the grey one rather than the Sol red car colour, which was a surprise to me. I'm surprised about the colour choice of the car. I mean, is it pretty much the same car which went on the trailer at Sebring that's come down off the trailer in Daytona, or have you done some work on it and developments over the very, very short off season?
Yeah, it's actually a new chassis. It's a new tub. I mean, all new components, but not a lot of development took place. Little things. We got a adjustable front roll bar, a little bit better AC cooling system. So more of some driver aids, but as far as the basic suspension components and all of that same carried over from last year.
What's the success of the car over the last couple of seasons? Do you perhaps feel that Daytona isn't necessarily the track that suits the basic concept of the Mazda?
I think we proved in the 240, the July 4th race last year, that the car's actually very fast around Daytona. We just, these 24-hour races are hard. You have to be perfect the whole time, and we haven't put one of those together yet. But but this one's not over. Don't count us out yet.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm not going to wish you good luck. I'm going to wish minor bad luck to two other cars. So you
can't. You cannot do that.
I don't want.
J-Bomb, it's Hindhoff here. Can you get these laps back? Can you get these laps back? Is it just a question of when the yellows fall?
Yeah, it's going to be a question of the yellows. We need to get lucky on a few of them. The field's so competitive. You're not just going to pass everybody, drive around, get a minute, 40-second lead, catch them again, and drive right through. It just doesn't work that way at this level, and the quality of drivers in the field. So we need some yellows. Fingers crossed for us.
You were very, very aggressive on that restart. You were pretty close to getting across the line and doing some overtaking beforehand. Was that about the best timed restart you've ever done in your career? It was outstanding.
Yeah, it was good timing, and the 48 car had a little bit of wheel spin, so that worked out well for us. We got a lap back, but they were right behind us, so it's hard to stay there. We need some yellows like we talked about, but yeah, it was fun dicing it up at the front. That was a good time.
Say hi to everybody down there, particularly to our friends, all of our friends in the team, Larry and Lena, and indeed all the team. We always like hanging out with you guys. Sorry we can't be with you in person, but thank you for your time, J-Bob. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for everything you guys do, and 9 more hours. We all got to keep pushing, right?
Us too. Have a good one. Be safe.
All right, take care.
Jonathan Bomarito joining us there after that impressive stint. Got one lap back in the 55. Pushing really hard at the moment, Ollie Jarvis. Nothing wrong with that car, 35.5 last time around. The car that was slightly worried about, well, it's only doing 37s at the moment, is the 31 of Mike Conway. Shea Adam, been watching the times. More importantly, as they try to chase down the 10 in seconds, the Cunningham and Alta Acura and the 01 of Scott Dixon in the lead. Really struggling, it seems, to get past LMP2 cars, that 31 now.
Yeah, watching the times, it's not that far off. I mean, 1.5 seconds a lap when you're in traffic, that's not the most unexpected thing in the world, but it was the pure struggle of the 31, and we commented on the fact that the Whelen Engineering Cadillac doesn't sound necessarily 100%. It could be the microphone, it could be the onboard microphone. Please let it be the onboard microphone. But it couldn't pull past the Tower Motorsports LMP2 car, currently being driven by Timothy Buret. And all right, Timothy's a very good driver, so that could be the instance there. But it still didn't look like it had the ponies to get up and go, and that is not Cadillac at all. The Cadillac normally can pull people on the banking fairly easily, and it was even going into the bus stop having some issues too, John. So that made me a little bit worried. I've reached out and I'm waiting back to hear from the team.
Shea Adam with that update from the pit, and paddock. A couple of people, Ben Stevenson has tweeted, using the hashtag R24Radio, as has Jake Parrott to IMSA, at IMSA Radio, about the Chetilar car, which was sitting at the sharp end of right at the top of the LMP2 field. Antonio Fuoco brought that Dallara in a while ago. Shea Adam, it's been in the pits for quite a while now, dropping laps. I think 5 laps the last time I glanced at the screen. What was the issue there?
Don't know. Unfortunately, that's one of the teams that never got back to us about having a contact in the pit lane. But remember, this is the same car that in the 100-minute qualifying race was running so strongly and then had to pull into the pits with about 6 minutes to go.
Alex Brundle with us this morning from the UK, listening as we were to the sound of that number 31 Cadillac, the Whelan car. He says he thinks that sounds like it's misfiring at the bottom end of its rev range, looking like it's low on power as well. So that could be a header, it could be something electrical, a manifold, could be something electrical, but Alex thinking the same as we are. And in fairness, at the moment, Mike Conway, as the pit stops start for the DPIs, 37.6 last time around. He's dropped 8 seconds now to Scott Dixon, and Dixie pretty much a full second quicker last time around. So the number 31 car is definitely struggling at the moment. Alex, good morning. Congratulations on your news for your full season drive, and you know you're welcome in any of our Radio Show Limited booths when you're not being busy in your day job as a racing driver. And with the greatest of respect, AB, I say this with much love, if we can't get you into the booth, it's normally because you're too busy racing, which is exactly the right thing, as much as we miss you and your superb knowledge. The best for 2021. Say hello to your mum and dad as well when you speak to them. I loved your dad's tweet the other day about his list of things that he's not going to do anymore, that he's realised in lockdown. And I think, like most people, he's realised that's a very long list. At IMSA Radio, hashtag R24, R24 Radio. Down to just 9.5 hours, so we're inside now, Shea, the length of a Petit Le Mans race as the 31 car is in to the pits. It looks regular at the moment, Shea.
Yep, and I'm not even seeing the fluid being added into the left-hand side of the engine bay, so that's a good sign for the crew. They did look over it. They were making sure that everything's good, but no, it was a perfectly timed stop, 32 seconds on the mark, so it did need a full load of fuel. But Mike Conway heading back out, they're not worried yet, which is good and, well, not good because we're worried and they're not, which means that they know something we don't, or we know something that they don't, and we don't know that they don't know what we don't know. Friends reference gone wrong. But yes, that 31 machine is heading back out onto the racetrack. AJ Allmendinger recently served a pit stop as well in the number 60. He went out for another stint in the Meyershank Racing Acura. And I believe we also have had in Ricky Taylor, yes, in the Konica Minolta Acura. That car recently down the pit lane, as was Ollie Jarvis in the Mazda, car number 55, still 3 laps off the lead of that category, but making a trip down. And also of note, Christina Nielsen has now completed her drive time in the 88 Team Hardpoint Porsche. They still need to get the minimum drive time in for Rob Ferriel, but he has not been driving well. It's been dark out, so I would imagine it is Cat Legg getting back behind the wheel of the 88.
Yeah, good to see those two drivers back. Christina in particular has some unfinished business with this race, twice an IMSA champion in GT.
Whilst we were going down the rabbit hole of Friends references, all I could think of the song was Little Does She Know That He... Anyway, there are 2 other options there.
The Curse All Flyers.
Yes. One, they know what's wrong and they can't fix it easily.
Right.
Or two, they know what's wrong and they're hoping it'll fix itself. Because, you know, if you've got something which you know you're going to have to stop for 12 minutes to fix, but you don't feel it's terrible, like it's not getting worse, people will live with it because we're losing a second a lap. You can't park it for 12 minutes to fix it. You know, it's like an intermittent spark plug issue. You know, it'd be interesting now on a set of new boots whether we still see Mike Conway dropping down, basically losing a second lap when he factored in traffic. So, you know, this is the problem, you see. It sounds wrong. We've got professional racing drivers saying it is wrong, and now the team's hoping they can make it right without actually having to go behind the wheel.
But they sprinkled magic dust over it, Shane.
Well, no, they just gave him a new set of tires. Mike was on a double stinted set of tires. That's why his lap times were just slightly slower than the other cars around them. But I have heard from Felipe Nasser, who said he feels like they're just a little bit down on straight line speed compared to the car that's in the pit lane now, which is the 0-1 of Scott Dixon. And Scott is staying aboard. No, he's getting out. Oh, and it's Renger van der Zande. Ladies and gentlemen, stand back from the fences. Renger van der Zande plus Daytona plus Cadillac has equaled Watch the last 2 years in a row. So Renger will be getting back behind the wheel of this car that he knows how to drive very, very well, even though it's a different chassis. I saw a wheel nut go rolling from the right front. Hopefully the mechanic noticed that. He didn't. Oh, they dropped the car off the air jacks before the wheel was secured. They lifted it back up. Now the mechanic is putting the wheel nut back on. Long stop. They haven't lost time yet, though, because fuel was still going in. So even though the car was stationary for 3 seconds longer, they didn't actually lose any time because of that errant wheel nut.
Yeah, that was unusually scrappy, that pit stop there. 4 tyres the mess there. I take, Nick, what was said about the tyre wear situation at the end of a double, but that does make the engine sound a bit off.
No, you don't suddenly have the tyres affecting the the bottom end of the engine. I mean, obviously you would lose some drive, but it would still sound fine whilst losing the drive. Unless it was triggering the traction control, which I don't think would sound like that anyway. So yeah, we need to just watch and see what Mike's lap times are now he's out. I think he's in 1:36.4. But obviously we need to know what the traffic conditions are around that, because a clear track 1:36.4 is not very good, but overtaking 3 or 4 cars, it's great.
Well, keep an eye on it, no doubt, because if anybody can wring a performance out of a car, it is Mike Conway, 36.4. Give him a couple of laps. We've seen that it does take a little time to get up to speed. Full tank of VP Racing fuel as well. 2 Corvettes in lockstep. They have been, Nick, pretty much all race. I think they got out to 3.2 seconds at one stage, and then quite clearly it was decided that that precision driving wasn't close enough, so they've closed them up to just under a second again.
Yeah, and despite the fact that Carlo De Felipe is certainly keeping them honest, you don't get the impression that there's going to be any other winner apart from the Corvette at the end of this. You do feel they're doing that thing which great long distance.
Nick, I think you just muted yourself.
Then they both sprint off and have a kick fit and see where they are, and the poor old bloke from Britain will be stranded behind the 2 East Africans again.
Well, we missed part of that, but I think it's probably just as well.
No, it's fine.
Probably just as well. Chip Ganassi and JDC Miller Motorsport grabbing a few Zs where you can. It's very cold in that pit lane. Working in easy ups or tented areas, you need to have every bit of clothing that you've got on there, and then steal other people's if you can, and completely deny it. And with the gaps between the pit stop share for the prototypes being down at probably only around about 40 minutes now, it's not a great amount of time for you, even if the car is running faultlessly, to grab a catnap, but that's really what you've got to do. Because somebody asked earlier on Twitter, and I forgot to get round to it actually, because we had something exciting happening, not a headline news story that, it's been buzzing all the time, hasn't it? Somebody said, so how many sets of pit crew do they have, and how many hours do they get off? And the answer to that would be...
Oh, that's so cute. How many hours do they get off? More like how many seconds do they get off? Yeah, this is a very long race. a very, very long day. And by dint of starting the race 2 hours later, it means that the mechanics, in effect, get 2 hours less sleep. You might find people with blankets, you might find people trying to get shut-eye here and there throughout the paddock and the pit lane, but to be honest, even if you're in DPI and you can go 45 minutes on a tank, you're looking at maybe 15, 20 minutes where you're not actively doing anything to get ready for the pit stop or cleaning up from the pit stop. So it's a lot of power naps. And you'll find crew members in the paddock who have worked in the paddock for a very long time. They're very good at feigning narcolepsy almost. They can fall asleep anywhere, in any position, at any time.
We have somebody like that in our crew. He does it particularly when you're driving anywhere. Hopefully when he's not in the driving seat. That's Joe Bradley. Who will be back later with Jeremy and Johnny. They're getting their slightly longer break at the moment and hopefully are sound asleep. Literally any time I've ever been on a long trip with Bradley, the worst thing you can do is have him persuade you to do the first stint of driving, because you'll barely be in the third gear and he'll be sound asleep. He'll often bring a pillow with him and he'll be sound asleep. Extraordinary.
I can verify that.
Yeah, time travel he calls it. That's like travel narcolepsy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
There is a very good
many
story.
A time.
Sorry, Chip, go ahead.
We've many a time, his part of the deal is that he drives from Heathrow, picking me up in the airport, to the train to go on the Eurotunnel. And then my part of the drive is from the Eurotunnel to Le Mans, which for those of you who have done it, realize that that's probably 5.5 hours versus the 1.5-hour trip from the airport to the Eurotunnel. And Joe has maybe slept... Ooh, you know what? I think he's maybe been awake 20 minutes total of all the years that we've done that drive together.
And that's only when you need him to put a credit card in the peage.
Exactly. Thank goodness for Sam.
Yeah, very good. The responsible adult in training.
Hey, that's me.
You are the second responsible adult in training, is that then?
Aww.
Well, I don't know how that works. That's not something that I'm allowed to talk about normally, so I'll shut up now.
Can you train responsibility?
No,
that doesn't seem like you can't be born with responsibility. You know, us feckless radio people. You know, I mean, we're going to get responsible, aren't we?
No, it's not about the responsible part. It's about being in training.
Right. So it's just the training. So basically, it's just about the training and not about what you achieve at the end of it.
Well, no, it's about understanding the yin and yang of the universe, and you know,
isn't it where you in your spare time you do courses on herding cats and things like that?
Oh well, that's the first thing you've got to do.
And in fairness, I'm very good at that.
At herding cats.
Yes.
It's a skill that anybody who works with radio and TV presenters or drivers needs to learn very quickly. At IMSA Radio, join the conversation. Use the hashtag R24 radio if you would like to join the conversation. Johnny P, not that one. Said, could the 31 be missing a gear? No, I don't think so. It sounded like it was revving all right. And it just sounded, as Alex Brundle said, it just sounded a bit recalcitrant and a bit wrong at low revs.
Back on the pace now, though.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's 136. Everyone's on a 136. The top three need 136. It's over 36. 37 from Ollie, which is just down to traffic. You know, so he's back on the pace. So whatever it was, the new boots miraculously solved it. Or perhaps someone hit the car we didn't see halfway through. Like you usually hit your telly in the 70s. It just whacked it once, suddenly it started working again. The horizontal hole kicked in, the car couldn't grip, and off we go.
It was Andrew Luscombe who asked the question about the pit crews earlier on. That's what I almost always have to do when I take the car for the MOT. I banged one of the rear lights, which worked fine this year, but what I didn't realise, I had a number plate light out as well. But apparently that's only a warning. now. And you've got multiple lights. So once the weather in the UK gets a little warmer and I don't risk frostbite by lying underneath the back of the 968, I will be replacing that. It's a little job, just one of those little jobs.
It's been so wet, you risk trench foot before you risk frostbite the last few weeks.
But honestly, if I'd been out, yes, last week and the week before, I would have needed an aqua lung to get under the car if I'd been out that long in it. Jacques Cousteau is now delivering the post around ours at the moment, and of course we've got flood tourism as well. Every time the river bursts at Banks, everybody decides it's a good idea to walk up through Eve's immaculately kept beds and through our garden, which is lovely.
Nothing worse than someone walking through your bed, is there?
No, it's not when it's an immaculately kept bed as well.
Oh, yes.
And would it be anything else? Let's be absolutely honest on that. Rob Chalmers says, how do you train responsibility? Are you, quote, asking for a friend? Very good. Our Porsche Case the Race. Rules. We've been over that several times, and it sort of feeds into number 2, Pitch Perfect, which not everybody has. I think there's been more little infractions and mistakes in the first part of this race, just over half of this race here, than I've seen here for a very long time. I know we've got some new teams, or teams new to the championship, but it does seem that people came into this a wee bit rusty.
Yes, my penalty notation sheet is, 2 pages long. And that's not good. That's not normally how long it is at this stage of the race. Now, we still have 9 hours and 16 minutes to go, so there's plenty of time for more infractions to come down. But a lot of the penalties that I've been seeing, few of them have been speeding, which is good because people have figured out their pit lane speed limiters finally as we got into the race. Most of them have been incident responsibility. We saw that coming with the additional classes, but we didn't think it would be within the classes that we've seen it in, if that makes sense.
No, I know exactly what you mean. What I haven't got, which I thought I could get from the Alcamel site, was the list that has numbers on them for how many stewards' decisions there have been in the race. Yeah, we haven't got that at the moment. Meantime, out on the track, side by side, across the start-finish line. This is the 52 prototype, which has had some delay.
Sorry, the leader unlapping himself from the leader in P2, which is Gabby Obery. He's managed to eke out an entire lap, and we've gone full course yellow. Which is good news for Mazda, bad news for someone.
It is bad news at the bus stop for the number 7-9 car, and that is why we have gone full course yellow. And there's been, I think it's clobbered one of the signs and people are running over it, and I can see bits of fixings out there as well. So it may be that car has continued, but it's just the debris on the track here that has caused the issue.
That's Kevin Estra again.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sorry, I should say.
Kevin Estra doesn't spin very often, but that is a signboard that has been taken out, as you say, so our marketing crew will not be terribly pleased about that. Hi, Casey and Emily. Yeah, they worked really hard to put those signboards out, but the fact that it is lying on track at the exit of the bus stop is one thing. The fact that there is a sandbag right next to it, that is potentially even more dangerous, because if someone hits that at speed, they would do a lot of damage.
It's coming out of the bus stop, isn't it? So it must have been across the grass at some stage and taken that. People have been taking a few liberties with cutting the corners. It was a spin from Estre. Oh, he could not have done that more perfectly if it had been scripted to a stunt driver. So if you think of the bus stop as 4 elements, so the first left, then the 2 middle rights, and then the 4th part is the last left. Kevin had got through the first two elements and was turning through the second of the right-handers, and just as he turned into it, the back end of the WeatherTech car got away, slid sideways and perfectly sideways, completely demolished the sponsor signboard, which is actually his sponsor as well. Of course, I've just realised. How funny is that? Well, at this time of the morning, it's tickled me a bit. An hour and 23 seconds since we came out of the 7th full course caution. We are now in our 8th. And if we have been clawing back some laps towards the distance record that Johnny talked to me about earlier on of 833. My prediction before that yellow had gone up as far as 805. And of course that will now slow down a little bit.
Very slow start of getting the laps away in the first hour and a half, because we've had what, 9 hours, only 2 or 3 since then. So it's, you know, it just started badly yellow flag wise, but it's been pretty good since then.
Well, we had that big 3 hours and 10 minutes from yesterday evening.
I think Jeremy said it's 4 hours and 6. I think.
No, he was counting it wrong. He admitted to me that he'd counted it from the start of the previous yellow flag, right, not the end of it. Which was when I pointed that out, he went, "Oh yeah, that'll be 3 hours and 10 minutes then." I went, "Yeah, that's right." So very good. Sorry, 3 hours and 49. 3 hours and 49. My apologies, but yes, it is 3 hours and 49. Just under. Let's call it 3 hours and 50. Just under the 4 hour mark was the long one. Finished at 10 past 8, having started at must have been 20 past 5, I suppose. Working backwards. Now where are? Sorry, sorry, Nick.
20 past 4.
20 past 4. Where are we with the sunrise, I hear you ask? We are about 40 minutes away. We should get the first vestiges of light, according to several websites, at about 6:47. But the official sunrise, which gives us 13 hours between sunset and sunrise, 13 hours and 11 minutes for those of you counting, is at 11 minutes, no, not 11 minutes past anything, at 13 minutes past 7 in the morning.
Yeah, but we're talking about Florida. Florida is flat. As a Floridian, I can speak with authority on this topic. The sun doesn't have to be up for the sun rays to start coming over the ocean. So
there is what they there is what they call a pre-sunrise light, and that's due to start at around about 10 minutes before 7. So a good 20 minutes before official sunrise.
The issue with Daytona is that we are in a bowl. So that was scary. The number 7 did not respect the safety officials and went between them.
Right, so let's explain for those who don't have pictures. We're in full course yellow, and the pits have just opened for the prototypes. But a couple of moments ago, the prototype number 7, which hasn't had the best of races, that was Trent Nestep in the 47 Motorsport, where the track services and officials are at the exit of the bus stop. There's a little bit, looked like there may have been a little bit of a grass fire going on there at one stage, and they have got the cars parked so that they're protecting the people who are working there, and Estep drove between the cars. Now that I don't think will go unnoticed from from race control. We'll leave that at that. It's not our call to make. Shea Adam, you've got the prototypes in, and as you might expect, it's a good time for everyone to pit. They've all got laps under their Michelins, so the first 5 prototypes have all come in. The Mazda will stay out. What's going on?
Fuel only for the 2 Cadillacs being run by Action Express. That's the Ally Cadillac, the number 48, and the 31 Whelen Engineering car. Fuel only for the Meyer Shank Racing Acura as well. That's the pink and black one, as that resumes back into the fast lane. Still AJ Allmendinger behind the wheel there. I believe it was fuel and maybe tires for Renger van der Zande. The light is on at the pit exit. Everyone has noticed and is stopping. That is important. Earlier, we had an incident where we almost had a pileup in the pit lane because somebody further back in the GTD field did not notice that the light was on. But hey, no harm, no foul. They all managed to get rolling once again. I think that's actually just fuel only from the entirety of the people who came down the pit lane. The only one I'm waiting to see is Ricky Taylor in that number 10 Konica Minolta Konica Minolta Acura. I tried to make it an Cadillac there.
Excellent.
Oh goodness, it's that time of the morning. I need more coffee.
Acura.
Acura. Yes. So Ricky is still showing is on the pit lane, which means that it was a longer service for the 10. Yes, driver change. Elio Castroneves behind the wheel of that one, which tells me that Elio probably has some new boots to go with that car as well.
Well, Kobayashi was the one who was furthest through his stint in the Ally Cadillac. He had done 18 laps since he took that car off for Mike Rockenfeller, and that was obviously 18 pretty much green flag laps. Renger van der Zande had done the fewest laps since he took that car off from Scott Dixon. He'd only done 9. So any slight differences between their times likely down, as Shea said, to the fuel fill. Slightly different tactics being employed by the Wayne Taylor Racing Acura. Ricky Taylor, in fairness, got into that car a very, very long time ago. So this is Ricky Taylor's stint. He got in at... No, he can't have.
When?
He can't have been in that long. Wait a minute. Let me just check back. So I've got Ricky Taylor as a 21 lap stint, a 9 lap, a 22, a 21 and a 12, all off the beds. So I should really have added them up as I was going along.
About 70, I believe.
That's a huge
little bit more.
stint. That is a Truswellian Ironman stint. So he got into that car. How many stints with them before that? There can't have been that many before him. He got in after Albuquerque's long one.
While you add that up, would you like me to call the GT pit stops?
I think he got in about... Hang on. I think he got in at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's been in that car 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty typical for Ricky.
That's impressive, though, isn't it?
It would be if it wasn't Ricky Taylor, and that's the kind of drive that I expect from him, to be honest. He set the bar that high. We have GTLM cars into the pit lane as well as GTD, but from GTLM, Alexander Sims come in from the lead in the silver Corvette. Nick Katzberg comes in from second in the yellow Corvette. One of the BMWs comes in. It's the red one, Connor DiFilippi. He should be staying behind the wheel of that car. He hasn't been in a terribly long time. James Collado in for the 62 Risi Competizione Ferrari. I'd imagine Marco Wittmann in the 24 BMW, that's the black one, should be in the next time around. And as for GTD, only the top 3 coming into the pits from our top 10. That's Nicholas Nielsen in the Ferrari, car number 21, Phil Ellis in the 57 Mercedes for Windward Racing. And from the other Mercedes, Raffaele Marciello comes in from the 75. And a great story about that Sun Energy car. Kenny Habul wanted a little bit more team bonding than he had been finding out earlier in the week. So we had all of the drivers dye their hair blue, and Raffaele Martiello, he doesn't look bad with blue hair, a little bit like Cookie Monster. Not taking anything away from you, Alex, but I just want to put that out there first and foremost. But yeah, I love to see that sort of team effort from everybody. Driver changes, by the way, in GT-LM for the Corvettes. It's Garcia back in the 3 and Milner back in the 4.
VP Racing Fuel pit paddock report from Shea Adam. Now that we've had everybody cycling through, now let me check to see, yeah, the Mazda did get its lap back. Let's quickly do a Mazda in-race update before we go through this racing hour. Still 1 or 2 GTD, so I'll leave them till the end this time. So behind the safety car for the 8th time of asking, we've had just over 2 hours and 19 minutes of yellow flag in the 15 hours near enough that we've had of racing since the green flag dropped. Pierre Fillon waved the green flag. So it is Renger van der Zande, Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing 0-1. AJ Allmendinger in second place in the 60 car. 31 Mike Conway in Whelen Engineering Racing Cadillac in third, and fourth is Kamui Kobayashi in the Ally Cadillac racing car. They're actually further apart behind the safety car than I think they were when they were racing. 2.6 seconds behind them. Don't worry about the times at the moment, we are under yellow. Elio Castro Neves is now aboard the number 10 Wayne Taylor Racer, Connington Minolta, Acura in 5th position. 6th is Ollie Jarvis, but 2 laps off the leaders. But now only 2 laps off the leaders. Remember, they had a recalcitrant gearbox when they were pulling out of the pit lane on the formation laps. They tried but failed to get a lap back with a bit of miscommunication. Then they did get a lap back, but they had a problem with the tail of the car, the rear section of the car, which cost them 3 laps, and they dropped back off again. In LMP2, 7th overall, Tower Motorsport, Gabriel Aubry leads in the Oreca at 07, that's the number 8 car. Then Di Francesco is behind the wheel of the Dragon Speed car in second, that's the 82. Paul-Loup Shatter for RWR Eurasia is in 3rd position. They're the only 3 cars in the lead lap, with Sven Muller, Porsche GT driver, standing in for another Porsche GT driver actually in that car, as they get some prototype experience. That really is the thing to look for the future, isn't it? RWR Eurasia then with their Leisha just 3 laps off the lead. GT Le Mans Corvette, it's back to being 3 and 4 this time, as they've been taking turns to lead. Somebody will be adding up the laps so they get exactly the same, and then 5 laps from the end will get the race to the flag, and then it'll be great like it was a couple of 3 years ago. Connor De Filippi is in the number 25 behind Milner in second, and Garcia who's leading. James Collado for racing. So 3, 4, 25, 62 and 24. Kevin Estre has, with his teammates, got the 79 car back up into 18th position. So through most, in fact past all of the GTD runners on the timing screen now, but not the leader in LMP3, but is now, let me see, 9 laps off the GT-LM field. In LMP3 it is Spencer Piggott from Riley Motorsport. He's completed 468 laps. The next best LMP3 is Joao Barbosa for Sean Creech Motorsport, who has done 463 in 33 car, and also on 463 is the Milner Motorsport car that was on pole position at the start of the race, the number 6 car. And in GTD, Phil Ellis is back behind the wheel of the leading Mercedes-AMG GT3. He tops the times, the number 57 Winwolf racing car, ahead of Raffaele Marciello in the number 75 Sun Energy Mercedes-AMG GT3. Sun Energy 1, that's the car that's been run by Gradient. And Matteo Cressoni for AF Corsa is in 3rd position Ben Keating's just come back out for TF Sport, and Matthew Campbell has come out for Faf Motorsport in the Porsches 97 and 9 respectively. That's how it stands. We're going back to green, and we'll start another racing hour now after that Mazda in race update. So back to green flag racing after our 8th full course caution. And Renger van der Zande trying to make his way away from the hordes behind him. It's not very far until he's going to catch some cars up who dived into the pits trying to make up laps on their category leaders. Austin McCusker for Riley Motorsport, I think, will be the first car that the train catches up. And indeed, he gets out of the way at turn 6. That was a smart move. Here comes the 48 car, now on board. Rui Kobayashi in the Cadillac, right underneath the rear wing of the Whelen car, goes down, of the 60 car rather, going down the inside of Allmendinger into the bus stop. We've seen how good Kamui is down there. It's a lovely piece of driving. Has gone through. That, Nick Damon, was copy boot stuff from Kobayashi.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, it's yeah, you need a little help. Well. You need a little help from the person letting you through, and they're going, that's fine. But the point about it is that now, following with Van der Zande's got two choices now. He can make a fight of it, or he can sit in the slipstream half a second behind, saving fuel. And that's the other option you have. Kobayashi may want to lead because he feels happier being the first person to see it, not having his space blocked by another Cadillac in close proximity. And that's what can go wrong. That
was the Volt Racing Aston Martin.
Oh, Aston, yeah, yellow. Yes,
going into turn 3 at the international hairpin, as Kamui was trying to go around one way. The Aston moved because he was trying to move out the way. But it's Renger van der Zande now from Kobayashi, scored in second with Allmendinger in third. And yeah, I agree with that. That's what I can see on the track.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's debatable, but especially in this train of DPIs we have, it's debatable as to where you want to be. And I think it's personal preference. Certainly the guys in the middle of the train are saving fuel. They could, slipstream up. They don't need to. They can ease off the throttle. They can coast into the bus stop. They can coast into turn 1 slightly. There hasn't been much fuel. No one's really seemed to have seen the need for it. We've seen what seem like identical cars in identical sessions doing 20, 21 and 22 laps. So I'm really interested to know how this fuel is being run, but it's obviously nothing they're going to tell us while the race is still going on.
3.5 miles around. It's not as if this is a short lap either. Let's keep our eyes, Nick and I, here in the Hackney Global Broadcast Centre. We'll keep our eyes on the track action. She must stay with the battle for the lead in the tri-oval at the moment. Kobayashi's got a super run on the leading car. Down the inside, there's contact, and Kobayashi goes around. Kobayashi got there, but not quite enough. And he'll have flat spotted, I think, those Michelins a little bit. Oh my goodness. Van der Zande gave enough room, but only enough. Kobayashi had to really get out of that. There was a tiny little touch, and as so often happens, Nick Damon, a beautiful run off the tri-oval. Kobayashi seemed in position, but ran his left-hand side Michelins onto the dirt and actually pushed the leader wide. There was a touch, but it was initiated, I think, Nick, by Kobayashi just dropping the left-hand side Michelins onto the dirt at the start of turn 1.
Optimistic, but Van der Zande didn't know he was going to do it and came across, and just enough. When Kobayashi moved in, he then hit the rear left on the dirt, and there is no grip on that dirt. And when he then tried to brake, of course, the rear end was locked, and round he goes and back. And it was a small touch, but I think what you say a non-damaging touch, more a touch that gave momentum for the car to go in the wrong way. I don't think either of those are going to need big fixes. The questions you very rightly raised, John, is has he flat spotted that set of tyres?
He may have got away with it, because he was, by the time he was on the brakes hard, and then he was sideways and stopping, so he may have got away with that if he was off the middle pedals. Very experienced operator. This from John Love from Michelin. As you know, America's race, the Daytona 500, coming up here in a couple of weeks. The race leaders 3 laps ago completed the Daytona 500 distance. 500 laps rather, of the road course. Now that totals 1,780 miles. That is an average speed, including the cautions and the pit stops, of 118 miles an hour. And with 9 hours still to go, or just under, 1,000 miles remain. So the old distance of Petit Le Mans before it became a time-sensitive race. 1,000 miles to go. And the computer says 800 laps will click off, so we'll be short by about an hour. So we've had about an hour. We're going to be an hour short.
Fortunately, together cost Kobayashi 16 seconds, John, which is, when you saw how spectacular it was and what could have happened, to get over 16 seconds, it's A, good driving, bad driving to get the position in the first place, good driving to get out of it with damage to the car and the tyres, but in the scheme of things, as long as he is pointing in the right direction, nothing's falling off like a strake or a bit of under tray, he'll forget about that one by the time that one gets yellow.
So that battle for the lead has calmed down a bit, but there's always something else to look at. So let's head into GT Le Mans, where Tom Milner for Corvette in the number 4 car is now in 3rd behind Antonio Garcia, and BMW Team RLL lead. And I think that might be the first time that, certainly I've said that.
They've all come together, haven't they, again, but on the same process. They were near that far apart. You get a nice full course caution that pulls them together in the train. And my guess is just the fact that the BMW were a little bit swifter in the pit stops, and they've managed to then pull out a couple of seconds ahead. It's not a lot, and you do feel that everything we've seen so far is the Corvettes can get it back if they can be bothered at the moment.
The battle is for 3rd position because James Collado is up to the high side, now down the low side, trying to pull the Kobayashi. Doesn't get that done through turn 1 and left and right of turns 2 and 3. Traffic ahead of them, including 1st and 2nd in their class, so they'll hit the traffic first. Ferrari just looks a little sharper coming out of the corners, Nick, at the moment, and James Collado seems to be able to pick and choose his line a little more. He's moving around behind Tom Milner for that scrap for 3rd spot. A number of people asking about the Corvette's engine, saying that they feel, obviously listening in on 107.9 on the track, they feel it sounds a little different from the C8R from last year. I'm not aware, Shea, that there's been any major change in the specification of the Corvette from last year to this.
No, I would agree with that. As far as I know, the season ended in Sebring in November. They were testing with their new drivers beginning of December in Sebring. Same car, same everything. I can't think of anything different on the car, but I'll consult the wise Ryan Smith for answers on that.
Very good. Now, we were going to talk about penalties a while ago, but things got rather exciting. 3 penalties, one which I think that pretty much any of us could have called, and that was the track services incident, Shea?
Yes, so car number 7 has been given a drive-through penalty for failing to drive with caution in relation to track services, and quite a few people up and down the pit lane have actually expressed their surprise at the lack of severity in that penalty, but that was race control's decision. We've also had penalties for car 52, which, yay, means car 52 is back out on the racetrack. That was the Nicolas Pierre car that stopped in turn 3. Penalty for running the light at the pit exit. That's a stop plus 60. And another penalty that came off the restart for car number 6, that is the Mjolnir Motorsports Duquesne LMP3 machine, a pass under yellow, which necessitates a drive-through. So race control is very busy right now.
So at the moment, the top 4 in GT Le Mans are all on the same piece of racetrack. GT Daytona, Phil Ellis for the Windward Racing team is 0.3 of a second ahead of Raffaele Marciello for Sun Energy One, the Mercedes, and in third it is Matteo Crezzoni, and they are separated by less than a second, those three cars. And I'll try and tell you where they are on the track at the moment. Just coming out of Speedway turn 1 into turn 2. So down through the tri-oval, that battle. Now, I said at about 47 minutes past the hour that we'd be looking at the first vestiges of light in the sky. So we've been past that now. So this is pre-sunrise light that we're seeing around the speedway right now. 11 minutes past 7 is when officially, 13 minutes past 7 is officially when the 13 hours and 11 minutes of night and sunset and sunrise end here. Now this is going to be interesting. BMW that leads GT Le Mans has cleared little GTD scrap on the infield. Through goes Antonio Garcia. Tommy Milner needs to get through quick sharp because the Racing Competizione Ferrari of James Collado is right on his tailpipe. It's the right Porsche that is there at the moment, doing exactly what they should do: stay on the racing line, let the faster cars find their way past. And that is Jan Halen behind the wheel of that car. The Ferrari just held up for a moment, but has the Mustang sampling Cadillac. Maybe I'll get a bit of drag from that car as it goes down into the braking area for the bus stop. So that's just broken up that scrap for a moment or two. And Phil Ellis now has a massive lead in GT Daytona. The Windward car's fully half a second ahead of Raffaele Marciello, has pulled out 4.5 tenths on third place, and Matteo Crezzoni, 2 AMG GT3s and a Ferrari 488 battling there. So Shea and Nick, I'll start with you. Another hour of racing completed, heading to the clock hour of 7 a.m. and breakfast time at Daytona. And you know, honestly, really, if I was being absolutely forthright, I don't think we've really found very much more out than we knew 15.25 hours ago, have we?
We finally had one of the DPIs trip over another DPI. They've been swinging past each other, both in the pits and on the faster parts of the speedway all day. Finally, one's tripped over another one, but it was no harm, only a slight foul, so that was good news. No one got knocked out. No, I think it's interesting. I think you had a nice little reset in this last hour with the yellow, and what we have is a battle in certainly 4 of the classes. I'm not sure if P2 is going to be a battle or not, but it's bubbling up. And of course now, after having 7 or 8 hours of nice solid temperature and air and pressure and humidity, here comes the sun, here comes the change in the track, and this is where we might see where people who have, for example, like the Harder Racing Aston Martin, set their cars up for the daytime and may be able to start really producing some gaps and gapping the other cars.
Shea Adam in the classes, LMP2, slightly been blown apart. We have got gaps between first and second, but Delvin Di Francesco is only 8 seconds behind Paul Loubchat, who, I mean, that Era Motorsport car back into second place. That's great news for them.
Yeah, you know, Ryan Dial, we said that he would work his razzle-dazzle magic, and he really has. But Devlin Di Francesco on his tail, that's going to be difficult for Paul Loubchat to keep the Aero Motorsport car up in second. But a lap lead for Gabby Aubrey. That's impressive at this stage of the race for the Tower Motorsports Orica.
Shea Adam and Nick Damon have been joining me, John Hindhaugh, in this section of the race in the Hackney Global Broadcast Centre. It's been an absolute blast. GTD, Nick, quite clearly, well, there's still 3 or 4 cars involved in that, and you can probably say the same about GT Le Mans. The top 5 are still pretty much together.
I think what happened was GTD got upset because we were talking about GT Le Mans so much, about how close that was, and they've gone, no, you just haven't noticed we've all come together again in a multi-engined and multi-car fight. And I think, if we get a regular spatterings of four-course yellows, this is what it's going to be like all the way to the flag in 8 3/4 hours' time. Really feel that this race is going to explode. You'll probably do it during Johnny and Joe's next 3-hour session, or 4-hour session. But I'm already looking forward to coming back to see where we're at in the bright sunlight as we race to the flag. And really, at that point, quite near the end, people have to start back timing rather than just reacting.
And we've yet to find out, of course, Nick, which cars are the best when the sun properly comes up. And it starts climbing, and the track temperature, which has dropped down as low as 14 Celsius overnight. It stayed as soon as the sun went down a couple of hours after. It's basically mirrored the air temperature, and that's where it is at the moment. Johnny Palmer is in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Morning, JP. Heading up to 7 a.m. You get to see the track come back to life. And the sunrise and that change in temperature, and what is that going to do to the performance levels of these cars? Fascinating few hours coming up.
It's another pivot point in the race, isn't it? And Nick, I think, hitting the nail on the head regarding setup there, because some cars have been designed during the free practice sessions to go well at night, others much better through the daytime and to the checkered flag. But even though we are minutes away from sunrise, they're still nowhere near there, because we've got well over a third of the race to go. It's another milestone. Psychologically, you feel like you're a step closer, but an awful lot more can unfold. We've seen that many times in previous years. I mean, a lot of drivers say you've got to be there or thereabouts on the lead lap into the final 4 hours, and that's where the race starts properly.